evening. This is the HHH Racing Podcast episode 100 celebration. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you for joining me on a very special night as we celebrate our 100th show on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm so happy you can join us tonight. We have an incredible show lined up for you. I hope you can join us for as long as possible tonight, or if you can't join us for the whole show, take a break and then come back. We have so many great guests, surprises, interesting information, topics in horse racing to talk about. I'm very excited. I've been planning this for a long time. Please make sure you subscribe right there on the right-hand side of the screen. You can do me a great favor by subscribing. I know a lot of you watch the show, but there are many of you that are not subscribed. It's free. Just hit that button. And after you do that, hit the notification bell, which will tell you when new content will arise. You can see there on my name tag, of course, my Twitter handle, @HKravitz. And then, of course, the scroll on the bottom does not have my email right now. Let me go ahead and put that up. There's the scroll on the bottom there, and also the next live stream, which will be a week from tomorrow. But you'll see you can reach me on my email there, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. Again, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. And also, please subscribe to the Race Day blog. You can see it on the screen. There's also information below the video player. I give great ABC picks and analysis, much more detail than I give on the show. Price plays, we've given away pick fours, pick fives, pick sixes on that Race Day blog. It's very popular. It's a great Christmas present or holiday present, late Hanukkah present. So please, New Year's present. So please make sure you subscribe to the Race Day blog. Now, one of the main reasons we're here tonight, other than celebrate show 100, and our first guest that we're going to have on tonight, we'll talk in detail. But you see on the bottom there, we are going to be working very hard all night to raise money for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, the TRF. You can see below there, it just went off the screen, but it'll continue on the bottom of the screen. Please donate to the TRF, folks. It's a fantastic organization. We're going to talk about it with our guests here in just a minute. And you can see on the bottom, if you make a free gift, if you make a donation of $20 or more, and there it is, www.trfinc.org/HHH. If you make a gift of $20, a donation of $20 or more, you will get a free gift of your choice from the TRF. Now, let me show you very briefly what it looks like so you all can see this very clearly. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up on the screen. This is our special website for the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm going to go full screen so you can see it there, folks. Again, trfinc.org/HHH. And you can see there are many things that you have a chance of getting free with a donation. With a donation of $20 to $49, you have a choice of a water bottle, a koozie, or for some awesome race horse note cards, great for the holiday season. With $50 or more, you will get free a fantastic beanie. I don't know about you, but it's getting cold up here in the Chicago area. I'm sure wherever you are, it's getting colder. Or a fantastic baseball hat. Now, to make sure you do that, you can see on the screen there, it says celebrate the green button. When you press that green button to make a donation, you'll go ahead and pick your choice, and then you can see right here, it says write us a comment. You'll go ahead and click that button, and then you will type in right here what gift you'd like. This is very important. Otherwise, the wonderful folks at the TRF will not know what gift you'd like. So make sure after you make that donation, hit that write us a comment button, and right there in the comment section, you will type in the gift that you would like to receive. Please make sure you hit that website. It's going to be open for infinitum for a long time. But if you'd like to receive a free gift, it needs to be done a $20 donation or more. Of course, we'd love a $50 donation, $1,000 donation, whatever you can give would be greatly appreciated to the TRF. But if you'd like that free gift, it must be done, as you can see right there, by December 15th. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a few quick comments. Let's see. We already have Michael Bryant. a fantastic guest who's been with us for a long time. Michael, thanks for joining the show. We will be giving, I'll be showing many comments. We have Jim. It says Caroline, but it's Jim. Thank you very much, Jim, for joining. He's joining us from Buffalo. Sorry about those Buffalo Bills. We won't talk about them. Hopefully, they'll recover next week. But we're going to have a lot of great people on the show tonight, and I can't wait, including many, many special guests. And one of our special guests, and she's already here nice and early, but actually, before I bring her on, sorry about that, I do want to recognize two other things. First of all, if you'd like to donate just to the channel itself, and that would be appreciated also. Let me just show you very quickly my home page. So right there, you can see there on the top right-hand side of the screen, there is a donate button through PayPal. If you've had any success because of the show, any picks I've given out, or you just want to donate to the channel to see it continue to grow and give great content, right there on the top hand right side of the screen, there is a donate button, and you can donate to the channel using PayPal. I just wanted to go ahead and show that. Before I bring on my first guest, I do want to recognize my first guest ever who could not join us tonight, but Jerry Richmond was my first official guest, good friend of mine. Thank you, Jerry. Hopefully you'll watch the show, and I appreciate you being my very first guest. But our first guest tonight is a very special person. She's a spokeswoman for the TRF. She's also, according to Peter Thomas Fortenthal, the first lady of the In the Money podcast. I'd like to bring on my new friend, Kim Weir. Kim, how are you doing tonight?
Well, congratulations, Howard. I am delighted to be here and to help you celebrate 100 episodes of horse racing magic. It is totally a treat to be with you. So thanks for including me.
Well, I greatly appreciate you coming on in our prior communication before tonight. We already have a lot of people watching tonight. Of course, it's going to be quite a long show, so I'm sure we'll have many people coming on in and out. And if you have any questions for Kim, again, each guest is going to be on approximately 15 minutes tonight because we have a lot of guests and a lot of things to discuss. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And then what our guests will do when they have a chance later in the week or next week or whenever, they'll go on to the YouTube. They'll go on to this, of course, YouTube site in the show, and perhaps they can answer some questions that we do not get to during the show. But Kim, first of all, tell the viewers who are not familiar with you, how did you first get involved with the TRF and just your background very quickly?
Well, thank you. It's always a dangerous question, but I got to this the job of my dreams. It's hard to call what I do. It's a calling, not a job, really. Because horses have given me every good thing in my whole life, starting from the age of a very young age. My first pony was at 8 years old as a very fortunate little girl growing up in San Diego. I have grown up with horses, doing everything from pony club to fox hunting to 3-day eventing and horse showing in San Diego. And it was a beautiful, wonderful, charmed way to grow up. And all my siblings have hooves is sort of the simple beginning of this story. But that being said, as life has unfolded and horse racing came into my life, I fully credit the handicapper in my household, who is my hubby, Bob Weir, is he's who took me to the races really for the first time. He took me to Laurel Racetrack for our first date way back in probably 1994. And who knew where our lives would take us. So I've been involved with the TRF now in my role since May of 2018, right when Bobby and I moved to Saratoga and essentially reinvented our lives. We left Washington, D.C. to come live in this place that we had fallen in love with because of horse racing, because of our friends in horse racing. And somehow both fell into the jobs of our dreams. He works for Andy Beyer now, and I work for the horses of the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. And there's a lot of in between to this story, but it is kind of my own little fairy tale. I feel so fortunate that I wake up every day with the opportunity to speak for the horses of the TRF because they're magical creatures, and they give and they give, and they love the humans who care for them. And it's fun to get to talk about them. So I've been doing this role for just, it'll be coming up on 4 years in May. And I feel like I've just gotten started. So thank you for giving me a chance to be with you and to talk a little bit about them tonight, Howard.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a terrific organization, and when I decided to, work with the TRF, there's only one person they had to call, and that was the wonderful Kim Weir. Tell us a little bit about the TRF for, again, people that are not aware, the main goals, the focus, and also I was wondering if you have any connection with Michael Blowen and Old Friends Farm, which, by the way, I was able to visit for the first time in September and saw some of my old horse racing friends, the four-legged friends. It was an amazing opportunity for me to go to old friends. But talk about the TRF and what the goal of the organization is.
Yes, and there's a very strong tie to Michael, who's just a unicorn and a wonderful human. So, but our organization, just to give everyone a primer on who we are and what we do, very simply, we have the honor, I have the honor of speaking for an organization that was the first of its kind in the country as a charity, 501c3, founded specifically to do this one thing. This is our mission statement. This is what we do, and it's what we've done since we started in 1983. And it is this: it is to save thoroughbred racehorses who are no longer able to compete on the racetrack from possible neglect, abuse, and slaughter, which is a sobering statement, right? Let us all let that sink in. It's a dark, there's a dark side to this, and our role is to prevent that. And our role is to focus on the welfare of the horses. So since we were founded in 1983, we have been saving thoroughbred racehorses. And we do that all day long. And our role as an entity is to raise the money to care for the animals that are in our herd. Our herd today is 500 beautiful, fabulous, amazing individual equine athletes. They each have a story, and that's what makes it infinitely fun. And so they are our charges, and they are our true north. Those horses live across the country. We are a national foundation, although founded here in New York, and I'm sitting in Saratoga Springs, where our national headquarters is located. But our horses live in 9 states across the country, and they live in 19 farms across the country. So we are spread wide. And without overplaying my answer to this question, I want to jump soon to the Old Friends connection. The magic of what we do is I guess 2 things. First of all, we take a horse in and we make a promise of a lifetime to that horse, which means they will never, ever be at risk. Once they're in our care, they will be with us forever. And no matter how old they are, no matter what happens, they'll be with us. So that is our promise. But in the process of doing that, and over the course of our evolution, we've from the very beginning had a kind of secret ingredient to our recipe, which is that we have found a way to put these horses that can no longer compete on the racetrack and can no longer do something athletic in a role as teachers. And they do that through our TRF Second Chances program. That is where our horses actually live in prisons, and they are teachers. They absolutely have a job. It's just not running anymore. Although they do that, they still run around. That's what they do. But they do that, and they are teachers of the men and the women and the young people in our programs across the country through our TRF Second Chances program. So that is the high level of who we are and what we do. And of course, Howard, you so kindly encouraging folks to go to our website. You can learn lots more there. Here's the fun, wonderful fun, not just fun, but magical fun connection to Michael Blowen and Old Friends. So we were the first. That is an inarguable truth. We were the first one of our type founded to do what we do. That was lovely and also not so great, because nobody wants to be the only game in town, especially when you're the only place that horses can go. So Michael, and I didn't know this till I went on a tour at Old Friends, Howard. I did a great the backstage tour of Old Friends with Michael and my dear friend Sharon Dominguez, because Michael wanted Sharon to see all the horses Ramon had ridden. So anyway, Michael told the story that he actually, when he first came to Kentucky, he was the director of operations for the TRF farms in Kentucky, which is specifically our TRF Second Chances program at Blackburn Correctional Complex. It also probably included our program at Secretariat Center at that time, which has now gone off on its own. But Michael, this is the fun part. Michael was of the TRF because the TRF, we were the only game in town. And I didn't know that. I knew about Michael. I knew about Old Friends. I didn't know this. And here's the magical part about Michael, which we've all know, but this part of the story, that he was so moved by the story of Ferdinand, which is just this tragic story that touches all of us every time we think about it, every time we hear about it. But Michael, when that happened, and he did that same thing that our founder did, Monique Kohler did originally in '83. Said, this cannot stand. This cannot be. We cannot let this happen. He went to the board of his employer, the TRF, and said, can we start taking stallions? We have got to make sure that the next Ferdinand does not happen. And I loved hearing this from him, because it makes infinite sense. As much as the way the world unfolds, the TRF board had to say, no, we can't. As an organization that's taking in hundreds, and at that point, thousands of horses, to take in stallions is an entirely different model. And it's not what we were set up to do. And so, to their credit, I really applaud that they said, we can't do it. But sure enough, that's exactly what Michael did. That was the moment that he knew he'd found his calling, which was to create old friends and to give a place for those amazing horses. And so we're cousins. That's where I'll boil it down, is like, we are of the same cloth. We are of the same tree. And together we have the same mission of sanctuary, which is rarer in the thoroughbred aftercare world. And that's good. There shouldn't be a million organizations like the TRF and Old Friends that take care of them till their last day, because we want them to be retrained and to do those athletic careers. But both Old Friends and TRF, we focus on those horses that cannot do something many would call useful. We find them very useful, but they can no longer be athletic. And that's where they come to sanctuary. And so we are drinking the same Kool-Aid. We are breathing the same air. And we cannot say enough for what Michael personally has done to raise awareness of thoroughbred aftercare. He did the lion's share. We had a lot of horses, but we weren't telling anybody about it. Whereas Michael, he engaged hearts and minds like yours, Howard, because he put those famous horses and he put them on display, and he got people to connect the dots. So,
Well, they're such beautiful animals, and they need to be taken care of. I mean, we need to take care of our elders, humans, animals, anything. There needs to be a respect there. These four-legged, wonderful creatures, even if they didn't win a million, it doesn't matter if they won $200, $1 million. They need to be cared for, and they deserve to be cared for. And I know, and I'm sure it's going to come up tonight, and I will bring it up with some other guests of the recent events. It's been a tough last 48 hours, Kim, especially, of course, with Medina's Spirit passing. And again, we're not going to get into the weeds now with Kim. Really, I'll wait till some other guests come on. But I'm sure you have the same visceral reaction I did. What a horrible tragedy, no matter how it happened, whatever. These animals need to be cared for. And going to the farm, and listen, I grew up in the northern suburbs of Chicago. I did not grow up on a farm. I did not grow up around horses. I just loved betting them when I was younger, and have learned to appreciate a lot more about them. They're wonderful creatures. And can you talk also a little bit about some events that you might have coming up, and also how people can donate their time as well as their money with the TRF?
absolutely. No, I love, your story, Howard, is very similar again to my husband's, who came at this from the game and the sport and the challenge. But then I like to believe you cannot help but fall in love with these creatures when you look them in the eye. They're magical, and I've known this since a young age. But they are also totally reliant on us. And I find myself talking about it all the time, that thoroughbreds in particular, because that is the world I live in now, I actually love them all. I love all horses. But thoroughbreds, they are by design, that they were not accidental. There's not a thoroughbred really on this planet that is here by accident. They are created, thoughtfully designed by humans who are matching up the sires and the dams. And they have human hands on them, like literally before they reach Earth. They are being handled. So their reliance on us is profound, and they give everything they have to us. So one can go on this path forever, that it is a mutual bond, that we love them. They give us so much joy. They're so beautiful. They're so magical, but they are totally tuned into us. And so it is on us. And I always laughingly say the best thing about horses is they can't talk, because that gives me something to do. We'd be in big trouble because
By the way, Kim, we already have Michael Bryan's already given $100. Just to let you know, Jim just made his donation. He lives in Buffalo. That beanie will be much used. Understand for sure. We already have donations are already flowing in, Kim. Any We just have a few more minutes left with you. I'm sorry we'd be so short tonight. I'd love to have you on another time. Any current events coming up, or how people can help other than donations with money?
Yeah. So the two
And
things
there's a cat behind you. Look out.
Oh, yes, and Mookie, my cats do love a good steam rag. So this is Mookie. She's a lucky cat. So the two ways I would encourage people to take a look is while they're on the website, and I've already seen these donations coming in. So my heart is full of gratitude for you, Howard, and each of your audience members who support us. You can also on our website go to trfinc.org/volunteer. And take a look at that page. There's a little podcast you can listen to about what volunteering might sound like. And there's a little form to fill out so you can sort of get in the loop of those things. We do Zoom calls with the volunteers. There are lots of ways to be involved. Our national volunteer herd is very active everywhere. I've got some volunteers in Chicago, Howard, I should tell you. My friend Connie
great
Harrison,
horse racing community in Chicago.
Yeah, so we love our volunteers everywhere, and time is the most precious resource we actually all have. It's the one we can't replenish. So consider volunteering, and even if it just means you're joining the herd and meeting some fellow friends, that's one option. And then the second thing is right now we are, at the end of the year, it is, always like every charity you've ever known, the ways in which you can be involved on a like an event basis. Our events are done for the year, but I'm going to give you two little things to look at for being involved on an ongoing basis. One of our favorite opportunities is to be a horse sponsor of a member of the herd. So you can sort of establish more of a personal connection with the horse. You can look at them all, where they race, look at their equibase. And that's actually how I first was involved. So you can pick a horse and you can make a commitment to them sort of on an annual basis, and you'll get updates, you'll get pictures, and you'll feel a little more connected to a horse. Last thing I'd say is that, especially for you, Howard, in Chicago, but all of your audience around the world, we have a farm in Louisville, Kentucky that just opened this year called the TRF Sanctuary Farm at Chestnut Hall. And it's on our webpage on the header. That is our one and only farm where you can go visit them. And I would love it if everyone watching who cares just finds a way to Louisville. We had that race there at the beginning of May. People have heard of it.
I think I've heard of it.
But anytime you get to the Louisville area, we have 12 happy horses who are living at this farm, and their job is to meet, greet, and make people fall in love with them. So you can book a tour, and that's all on our website too. So those are a couple ways to give people a little bit more of a connection. And I will come back and chat with you anytime, Howard, but just congratulations, friend. A project like this is a labor of love, and we all know how much you love horse racing. I am grateful that you also love these animals and that you've given me a chance to speak on their behalf tonight. So,
well, thanks for coming on the show. And by the way, all those donations, they're tax-free, tax deductible. Not one dime goes to the HHH Racing Podcast. And in case anyone wonders, every single dime goes to TRF. And of course, you could possibly get a free prize as well, depending on the size of your donation. Kim Weir, thanks very much for joining us tonight. I look forward to having you on the show again sometime. Have a great night. Take care.
Thanks,
Kim.
Howard. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you. All right, that was Kim Weir, folks. Fantastic. Now, listen, a lot of you did not join me until later on. Let's take a look. We're going to show a lot of videos tonight. The very first show, this is the first 25 seconds. This was January. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up here on the screen so you folks can see it. I'm actually going to play it as well. And again, I know a lot of people have not seen this. And what you're going to know is it's very raw in terms of the technology and whatnot, but this was January 22nd, 2021, the very first 25 seconds of the HHH Racing Podcast.
Good evening and welcome to Howard's Horse Handicapping YouTube channel. This is Howard Kravitz. Please make sure you subscribe down below. If you enjoy what you're watching, we're going to be doing some great handicapping of mainly pick fours and pick fives throughout the country in Florida, California, and New York, with emphasis on major stake races.
So there it was, folks. That was the very first. I know it's hard to believe. That was the very first 25 seconds. By the way, what a lot of people don't get to see what I see. That's pretty much what I see from my view. I'm in my study, so to speak, in my house, and that's the sort of the view. It's changed a little bit. It's not exactly what you folks just saw, but that's basically the view that you folks see. Now, in between the guests, I'm going to show you some of our great scores from the year. Now, listen, when you're a public handicapper, Obviously, you want to have a great ROI. That's the main thing, right? But you shoot for about 30%. 30% is pretty good if you can get to that point. Uh, over this year, I've had plenty of misses. Of course, I've had plenty of misses. I shoot for the stars. I try to get some prices for you folks. Uh, I'm going to show you a culmination of previews and very quickly the actual race themselves. And there's going to be 10 of them tonight. And the average price of the horse that won the race that we're going to show that I gave out on this show was 14 to 1. Not bad, right? 14 to 1. And of course, listen, I've missed many times. You're going to miss many times in this game, but we've had many good hits as well. The first one we're going to talk about, and this is in chronological order, by the way, chronological order, was from the Saudi Cup. Mishrif, my first son of the year, Mishrif. Let's go back and take a look at the preview show and the Saudi Cup. This was in February. This was episode 10. And this is going to be me in a moment here as I bring it up, talking about Mishrif. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. Actually, sorry, let me go ahead and make sure there's sound on here. Hold on, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, here we go. We're going to go ahead and bring this up again. Here we go. So here is me talking about Mishrif, obviously way before the race.
A race over the track for sure. But last year, as a 3-year-old, he was in some serious Grade 1 turf races. He was one of the best one of the best 3-year-old turf horses in Europe last year. And so I don't think they'd run him in this race if they didn't think that he could compete. I think if things work out well, I think he has an outside shot to win if there's a speed, if there's a lot of speed. And I definitely think he has a shot to be in the money.
All right, so that was me saying he has a good shot to win, a shot to be in the money. Just one other quick segment, and then we'll go ahead and watch the stretch run. Here's me also talking about Mishrif.
Aggressive 4-year-old who probably wants to go a little bit further. You can see he ran a 1:01 time form in that race we just watched, and look how much he improved during the year. I'm not worried about the layoff. The European horses can come back and run big. Godsden said this horse is easy to train. I'll take his word for it. Again, I really like Mishrif quite a bit in this race.
All right, there you go. So that's what I said before the race. Now, let's go watch the Saudi Cup, the stretch run of the Saudi Cup, right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. We all know, fortunately, who won. For me, this horse was 19 to 1, folks. Mishrif winning the Saudi Cup.
Nick's Go comes on through to take the lead. Charlatan sticks right with him. And the race is on round the far turn in the Saudi Cup. Charlatan on the outside of Nick's Go. Nick's Go grinding it out. Charlatan right there too. Mishrif under pressure back in third. Tacitus is asked to go now. Great Scott angles to the outside for the final quarter mile. They're coming for the top of the stretch. Charlatan has shrugged off the challenge of Nick's Go. Charlatan turning for home in front. Mishrif is now the challenger. They're off the turn. They're into the stretch. Charlatan digging down deep on the lead. Mishrif desperately trying to get by. Nick's Go's been defeated. Great Scott and Tacitus coming down to the final 100 meters. Charlatan has to fend off the oncoming Mishrif. Mishrif is roused to the lead. Charlatan tries to fight back. Is doing so. Mishrif, Charlatan. Mishrif conquers the cup. An upset winner.
I got to say, folks, I wasn't really that well known then. I'm not really saying I'm that well known now, but not only did I give a big fist pump right there when that happened, but I was so happy for the viewers because I know we had people watching the show at that point, and I'm as happy as myself as I am for you guys. So again, if you scored on Mishrif, and by the way, I put out a tweet. So again, I only started my Twitter adventure in January. So I was really only around on the public scene, so to speak, for a month. If you scored on Mishrif, please comment down below the video player in the live chat. I was extremely happy. Beat Charlatan. A huge victory for the HHH Racing Podcast. Again, he was 19 to 1. I know Mishrif was an absolute monster this year, but he was very unexposed then. People didn't really know too much about him, especially in the States. And Mishriff went on to have a fantastic year, winning the Saudi Cup in February for myself and the HHH Racing podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be rolling with our guest. Our next guest, I'm sure, has had a very long few days, and I am so happy to bring this next guest on. He is here to represent the In the Money media team, who I give great thanks for helping me throughout this year, and I'll talk about In the Money media in my final speech at the end of the night. But this gentleman is an integral part of In the Money media. He wears many hats. He is in Tucson right now covering the Global Symposium, which we're going to talk about in detail. I'm very happy to call him a friend of mine, Mr. Nick Tamro. Nick, how you hanging in there tonight?
I'm doing great, Howard. Glad to be with you. Congrats on the 100th show, and happy to speak with you for a few minutes.
Thanks. Listen, I got a question for you because I saw something on Twitter that I got to bring up. I know you're like me. It's not easy to sometimes deal with health situations. I'm really hoping, Nick, I'm hoping and praying that these 4 hot dogs were for 4 people and not just maybe you or PTF. Any comments?
They were for a large group, yes.
All right, that's good.
Did Thursday, or no, I've lost track of days. Monday night, the first night that we were here, the folks from BetMakers, who were a big sponsor of the Global Symposium, organized a taco tour of Tucson. And I was a little reticent at first. I'm from Houston, so I have access to good tacos pretty regularly. But that was the 3rd stop. So what you saw in those photos are called Sonoran dogs.
Okay,
and
wow.
That's a Tucson specialty, as Pete and I learned. And that was the 3rd stop on a 3-stop tour. So we were about, I want to say, 4 to 5 tacos in by then. It was quite a run. Yeah, we went with the beef cheek tacos at the first stop, and we had some costillas, which are nice Mexican ribs, and second stop was shrimp tacos. We had a little shrimp ceviche tostada. We had shrimp meatballs. So it was a very good run.
That actually sounds really good.
It was amazing. It was a great night. They had a bus that drove us around, had a few adult beverages on the bus, so it was terrific.
Now that is shocking, but not shocking. Listen, I'd love to talk to you for an hour about what's happened the last few days here in horse racing, because it's just been crazy. I did a lot of prep for this
Really?
podcast.
I hadn't heard.
Yeah, a few things have been happening. I did a lot of prep for this podcast, starting literally a week or two ago. And of course, the last 40 hours happened, and I'm including Saturday's races in New York, which I went into a great detail on in my episode 99 show. I know you talked about those stake races and whatnot, and all the situations with the inquiries and everything. But Nick, while we have about 12 minutes here with you, I got a few quick questions. First of all, I'd be remiss not to ask you, and I think most people know by now, but you are the new voice of Sam Houston Racecourse. Tell me any prep you're doing for that and how excited you are as the meet starts next month.
Well, I've found my permanent set of binoculars, so I'm very excited about that. I will admit that they're going to be on loan from my dear friend Travis Stone. So he has 2 sets of the Canon image stabilized binoculars. So very excited about that. They're in short supply right now, so that was a good result.
Everything's in short supply right now, I think.
That's the truth, right? Except Howard horse racing podcasts, as we're learning tonight. Those are not in short supply. So no,
and bad opinions on horse racing too. That's a whole other conversation.
It's a good game to hit about 200, but yeah, I'm prepping, as much as I can. I've gone out to the track a couple times and had some meetings about different things going on as far as the racing itself goes, and calling races off the TV, which, is not necessarily the best thing to do, but I'll sit in my office at home sometimes and turn the sound off and call it and just tape it on my phone and listen just so I can see, how things sound. I'm also going to Fairgrounds on the 27th. For the day, and I've spoken with John Dooley, and so he's going to set me up a little spot next to him to call the races, just so that on January 6th I'm not really fresh. So that'll be good. I'm looking forward to that. He might let me get on the mic. I'm not going to push him on a race at the Fairgrounds itself. There might actually be people listening that day. So
no, that'd be cool. I've had John on the show, by the way. Great guy.
John's great.
Well,
great,
we all
better guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like yourself, and we wish you great success at Sam
Well,
Houston.
thank
We'll
you.
be
I
watching,
greatly
listening.
appreciate it. Yeah, I greatly
Now,
appreciate it. And I know you'll be putting your money through the windows, which is even better.
oh, you know that's gonna happen for sure.
That's right.
Listen, we could talk 2 hours about the global racing symposium, which, if you don't know, folks, I think just wrapped up today, actually, in Tucson, I believe. And basically, it's a huge horse racing conference, probably the biggest one in the world. Nick, I don't even know where to begin, but I'm going to let you sort of go ahead and speak. I'm not going to interrupt you at all. What are some of the highlights of things you heard today, yesterday? Some things that you glean that our viewers would be most interested in hearing?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a delicate time in racing, right? So it was incumbent upon the racetrack industry program that organizes this event, because it's here in our University of Arizona, of course, is here in Tucson, to put together a program that really looked at racing's key issues. And chief among them were conversations yesterday about public perception and HISA, and an introduction of Tom Rooney, who's the new president of the NTRA, the first public remarks of Charles Sheeler, who's going to be the head of HISA, and a little bit about implementation, some of the things that are being done now to get ready for that July 1st deadline, or I guess you would call it more of a start date. And so those were kind of the focus yesterday. That the panels ended yesterday with a kind of an all-star lineup of 4 racing executives that really, I think, among them represent about 80% of the handle in this country. It was Craig Fravel of the Stronach Group, and Shannon Arvin from Keeneland, as well as Josh Rubenstein from Delmar and Dave O'Rourke from Naira. And they talked a lot about some of the issues that face racing, some of the things that they've done to try and better their products respectively, and also assuage some of the concerns that have really become prevalent in the game. And I think their remarks were met generally with a good deal of positivity. They tried to definitely really identify some of the strong points that we have now, because undoubtedly we could all go on for a very long period of time about the challenges that are faced, but they were also willing to admit that there are plenty of challenges. So I thought it was informative and very interesting. Today started with a racing secretary conversation about maximizing field size opportunities. The liveliest panel that I went to was on fixed odds. And the fixed odds conversation has really become a big one in racing, with fixed odds wagering soon to be implemented in New Jersey. And so Bill Knopf, who's the vice president of operations from Monmouth, was joined by a couple of guys that are very familiar with this space, including Dallas Baker from BetMakers, who have positioned themselves as the first official bet taker in New Jersey. And they've also bought the Sportech Tote Company, that they're now going to try and really upgrade, and they've rebranded to be called Global Tote. So they're going to have those machines equipped to take wagers in New Jersey very soon. And Simon Fraser from First Technology, which is also known as the Stronach Group, who controls some of the international fixed odds operation. And he and Dallas actually got into a little bit of an argument, which was very informative, very insightful. I think they're friends, which helps too. But they have differing opinions on how fixed odds could potentially cannibalize the parimutuel markets. And that's a big part of the conversation. And joining them was Eric Hamelbeck from the National HBPA, who, of course, is singularly concerned with making sure that horsemen receive their rightful share of wagers in a market that doesn't include a fixed takeout. So it was very good. It was very, very interesting. There was a sports betting panel with Dan Shapiro from Caesars, as well as Ylva Svensson from Sweden. And they were joined by Andrew Moore of FanDuel. That was very, very good. There was a decoupling conversation in the afternoon, as well as a panel with some people that had a lot of success in 2020. Tony Olivato from Naira, as well as Eric Hallstrom from Indiana Grand, and Andrew Offerman from Canterbury, all of whom represent racetracks and/or operators that saw big increases in 2020. So they worked their way around some difficulty that they had before. Of course, Eric and Andrew are both from racetracks that implemented super low takeout new wagers. And they also changed their racing schedules to make them more, they accommodated the racing fans a little bit better in terms of going earlier in the week or weekdays only. So, it's of course, this all happened with the backdrop of the Medina Spirit situation, which happened Monday when a lot of people were in transit out here, or when some had gotten and here already. And tough to really weave that into what they were trying to offer. Shockingly, there was not a lot of public comments made about Medina Spirit's trainer, who I think represents a very, very delicate topic. I would suggest that anybody that wants to hear a little bit more about my take on it, listen to the podcast that Pete and I did on Monday, where we went into pretty significant detail. And with you being affiliated with the In the Money Media Network, I have no problem using this opportunity to shill a little bit.
No, I was going to bring that up, folks. I know. Listen, we love to hear what Nick has to say about Medina Spirit, about Irad Ortiz. They covered all that on the Players Podcast with PTF. Highly recommend you listen to it. I listened to it last night, Nick, the entire show. Also, Matt Bernier, just throw another In the Money Media member on his show. Was very blunt, about as blunt, and if you watch the last 1 minute of Matt Bernier's show, you know how passionate he is about horse racing. Because Nick, I think I've used profanity on this show maybe twice the entire year, but Matt was exactly right. We look like a bunch of assholes. I mean, and my first reaction when I heard about Medina Spirit, I was, I'm teaching, and so I didn't hear it until later in the day. Was, I mean, what the fuck are we doing? What is going on? And we have no idea what happened with Medina Spirit. And you said it, and Matt said it. We don't know exactly, but just the whole optics. We just keep banging our heads against the wall over and over again, completely our own fault. And there's so many great things happening in horse racing too. I know you mentioned, the tax structure changed in 2017, so that helped the IRS. I just had Kim Weir on, and all night we're promoting the TRF, which is just an incredible organization. Thousands of people, in this business that do wonderful things. Nick, we just keep stepping on each other's toes. And I'll give you another example very briefly. I don't know if you saw this tweet from Janine Sahadi, former trainer out in California, who basically, I'm just going to paraphrase, said, well, I know Medina Spirit passed away. What are all the deaths in New York? Like, what are we doing? Like, why are we, so what? So California or New York's worse because they have less deaths? I mean, like, why do we keep doing this to ourselves? I just don't understand, Nick. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just very foolish to regionalize this problem, right? I mean, it's not a regional problem; it's a global problem, and it doesn't really matter whether more horses have died here or there. It's a problem that horses die, period. And obviously, the fine line that gets straddled is that not every horse is going to make it, right? We're going to have some equine fatalities. We're going to have things happen. The problem is that Medina Spirit was trained by an individual who has had a number of very serious infractions come up over the course of the last couple of years. And he himself was a horse who was at the forefront of them. He also won an extremely high profile race. So a race that even to this point, there's not been anything adjudicated as far as whether he's still the rightful winner or the purse has been redistributed or anything of that sort. And I mean, there's a decent chance that the original second place finisher could be at stud before we have that determination made, which I certainly hope is not the case. But yeah, we've looked like, we've looked like a group that needs the federal government to come in and help us. And that's
they are starting at the beginning of 23, correct? You want to tell, just as I end your segment here, just tell people very briefly what you're talking about if they're not aware.
Yeah, the start date for HISA has been July 1st of 2022 all along. What we've learned in recent days is that the U.S. Anti-Doping Association is not going to fully be implemented and really be boots on the ground ready to go until 2023. So that presents a host of challenges anyway, and anybody who thinks that the implementation of HISA is going to be some magic bullet that will eradicate any of racing's issues is kidding themselves, because a lot of the things that are going to be put in as far as anti-doping policies would have never even found that Jason Service or Jorge Navarro were using mislabeled PEDs. So it's a challenging time. There's a lot that has to go on to make things better, but I want everybody to know that, and I told a lot of people here that the horse player community, which primarily your audience is made up of, we feel strongly about these things because we love the game, we love horses, and we don't need to be served platitudes about how there's a great emphasis by racetracks and operators on equine safety and human and equine safety and welfare. We want jockeys and trainers and horses to be okay as well. So those things aren't mutually exclusive. You can recognize the contribution that we make while understanding that that's part of your focus as well. So hopefully this will be an opportunity for everything to be kind of recalibrated and pointed in the right direction, because we still have a really tremendous responsibility to continue to be good custodians of the game. And, as hard as it is, I'll continue to bet and I'll continue to support the game every way I possibly can, which I'm glad I'm blessed to do so. And that includes joining you and the audience here that certainly enjoy your work and are part of a community of people that really, really matter.
Well, thanks, Nick. I will, and I know you put this on Twitter that you, along with me, we're always going to look out for the better and the better's interest because
Always.
there is no game without the betters. Nick Tamro, I look forward to our next engagement together. And if I don't talk to you before you begin calling it Sam Houston, good luck, man. We're so happy for you. Thanks for being on my 100th episode tonight.
Thanks, my friend. My pleasure was all mine. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Nick. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, that was Nick Tamro, folks. What a great guy. Nick, I'm really, really happy you were able to come on the show. I know it's been a very busy few days. And for him to come on, guys, just shows you how dedicated he is to the sport and what a good guy he is. So, Nick, thank you very much. Of course, any guests, you're welcome to stay on, of course, on this link and listen to the show as long as you'd like. Now, before we get on to our next guest, let's go to another video. Again, folks, we're going to go guest video, etc. I hope you enjoy the show. Please feel free to comment on how the show is going and anything you'd like to see differently as we move forward. So, in March, episode 14, there was a big race in California. That race was called the Big Cap. And on this show, I was very, very interested in a horse. I probably talked about this horse for a good, 10 minutes on the show. Thank goodness I was right because I would have felt like a complete idiot. Let's go ahead and pull up episode 14. And as you watch, I think you'll know who I was talking about. Again, this was a preview for the Santa Anita Big Cap, which occurred in March.
Here's my opinion on Idol. Idol gets Joel Rosario. Now, let me go back on camera. Idol gets Joel Rosario. Here's my hope. There's enough speed in this race, and I'm going to show you some more horses in this race. There's enough speed in this race, I think, where you can close into. I want Joel Rosario to take back and just stay out of trouble and go to the outside on the far turn. I think Idol wants to run all day. I think he's like a locomotive. He doesn't have gears, okay? He's basically a galloper, and once he gets going, you can't really stop him. This is not a stop and start, quick acceleration kind of horse. He needs to be on the outside, in the clear. If Joel Rosario gets this horse on the outside on the far turn, in the clear, and then going a strong enough pace, I think this horse can run forever. And I can easily see him going by the field in the stretch and winning at anywhere between 5-1, 8-1.
All right, so that was my opinion. Now he was a pretty decent price there in the morning line. Let's go ahead, folks, and bring up the stretch run of the Big Cap in March and coming home for the HHH Racing Podcast. Idol.
Behind them, Idol, followed by Coastal Defense and Kiss Today Goodbye. Express Train takes the lead into the stretch, and he opens up a length. Independence Hall running a big one. Maxfield on the outside, and Tis a Magician. There's an eighth of a mile to go, and Express Train is digging in. Independence Hall far outside. Here comes Idol with giant strides. It's Express Train. Idol's trying to get him. Express Train or Idol. Idol perfectly timed. Idol gets up under Joel Rosario.
Man, I tell you what, I had a serious fist pump at home watching that. He went off at 5-1. By the way, we also hit the pick six that day. We gave out there was a mandatory payout that day, and we were able to hit the pick six on the show during that sequence. And Idol was a lone A for me that day, so that was huge for me personally. If you scored on Idol, congratulations. I know some of you are watching this, by the way. You saw the tech there. I had the old microphone, or not old, but I had the boom microphone. I had the echo going. It was bad. My graphics, everything's gotten a lot better since then. But Idol was a great score for the HHH Racing Podcast. That was awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we move on, I've had a lot of great guests on my show. And also, and they're not all in the business. I'm going to go ahead and bring on right now from our New York team, one gentleman who is not only a viewer but also in the industry as a journalist, and also just a guy like me who just loves horse racing and is a viewer. They've both been on my show to help you folks with handicapping. They are very knowledgeable. They're going to be talking about New York racing here in 2021. Very happy to bring on two fine gentlemen. And hold on a second. Well, I have to actually bring them on. Sorry, guys. There we go. Pete Visco and Paul Halloran. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Not bad. How are you, Howard?
I'm doing fantastic. Paul, can you hear us? All right, Paul's having a little bit of an audio problem. We'll let Paul get situated. Pete, I know, just for everyone knows, that you don't actually live in New York. You live pretty close in the Baltimore area.
Yeah.
I was just talking with Nick Tamro about issues. Unfortunately, there's been issues at Laurel too with the track.
Yeah.
As Paul's just getting his audio set, tell everyone when racing will be back at Laurel, as far as you know.
As far as I know, I saw something, I think it was either today or yesterday, that they were shooting for, let me look at my calendar, I think next weekend or the 16th or so, but I don't know if that was final yet. And again, I don't play Laurel a ton, so it wasn't affecting me as much, but you just never want to see that at any track, especially one that I like and care about.
No, for sure. Paul, can you hear us now? I think you have the mute button on, Paul, I believe, but other than that, I think... no, we still can't.
There we go.
There we go. Paul Halloran he's got the Saratoga special. He's all dressed up. Paul, how you doing tonight out there?
Special occasion, Howard. I dress up for special occasion.
I appreciate that. Listen, guys, we only have a short amount of time, of course, with all of our guests because I wanted to get as many guests as possible. I just want to personally thank you guys for being a huge part of this show through handicapping and other avenues. And Paul especially helped me get Raylu Gutierrez and Sophie Doyle and some other people. So, Paul, shout out for those connections. Gentlemen, the topics we're going to talk about very briefly. Let's talk about what happened last weekend. I did a huge show, episode 99, talking about Irad Ortiz and the 3 stake races. And they were great. They were fantastic races. Unfortunately, there was some controversy. Paul, I'm going to start with you as someone who's covered New York and I'm sure has met Irad. He got a 30-day suspension. Basically because not only of the ride Saturday, but mainly because of what I thought was a dangerous and absolutely ridiculous ride on Friday. What's your overall take on Irad Ortiz right now and the suspension handed down?
Well, first of all, suspension, Howard, is very warranted. I was watching the race Friday because I played into that double carryover. Of course, I was out by then because it was 150 to one shot after another. But, it's almost like you would think something might have happened in a race. It was like he was just targeting that kid. And, the obvious question is, would he have done that to a Joel Rosario or Johnny Velasquez as opposed to a Bug Boy? I don't know. I mean, as you said, I've talked to Irad many times after races. He's great with us. He's a hardworking kid. He's out there in the mornings. But, there is a line and, Cordero was the greatest up at Saratoga, but it's a different game now. And that thing Friday was about as reckless an act. It was Paco Lopez on steroids. It's as reckless an act as you're going to see. He came from the 6 path. He was in the 5. He had the 5.
Yep.
He broke a little out, came, and the other horse was in the 2 all the way down on the rail, and he just did a direct beeline for him. And he dropped him. The horse hit the rail. Fortunately, the kid Omar Hernandez didn't hit the rail. But
no.
It's just something. Irad is he's an Eclipse Award winning jockey. He's going to win it again. But that was reckless.
No, for sure. Pete, what was your take about Saturday? I don't know if you had a chance to watch the 99 episode show, but I'm assuming you bet the races Saturday. Pete, just in general, your overall impressions with the decisions from the stewards in the 3 races on Saturday. And then we'll go ahead and talk about some things that happened this year in New York.
Well, actually, it's funny. Yeah, I wasn't watching the Saturday live, but I caught the replay and I didn't understand at first. And then when you see the head on, you see the slow-mo, you sort of get an idea. And then on the back of what happened Friday, you don't understand. Well, obviously the stewards aren't going to take like Friday into account for a race on Saturday, but I thought he probably should have come down Saturday. I actually had the horse, so I was happy he stayed up. But
So did I.
yeah. So I mean, when you're sometimes you're a little selfish and you want what's best for you. But I mean, I agree with Paul 100% on more on Friday, where I just thought that was so egregious. And if it was someone and it was the first time, it's one thing, but when it's repeat offenders, and it's like any sport, in any sport, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, the referees, the stewards, the umpires, whatever it is, are going to keep a closer eye out. And unfortunately, horse racing isn't the best at that. But I thought he shouldn't have rode Saturday. My first thought was on Friday. I don't even think he should ride Saturday, but I know things don't usually work that quickly.
Yeah, sorry, Paul, you want to chime in real quick?
Yeah, Pete, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say, Howard, you and Nick just got through talking about how our game, that we all love, that we keep shooting ourselves in the foot. That IRAD should have been in the steward's room at 9 o'clock Saturday morning after training.
Yes.
They should have put that video on, and they should have said, okay, we'll get back to you in an hour. And in 1 hour, they should have said, you are suspended. And if you want to appeal, you can appeal, but you are not riding today. He should not have been allowed to win 3 stakes races on that Saturday card. Or if it were a case where he could have been vindicated, they could, if it weren't so egregious. But there's no way a regular person who doesn't follow the sport like we do can understand. He puts a jockey into the rail on Friday and he wins 3 big races on Saturday. That doesn't compute.
Listen, in the NBA, if you punch a guy or whatever, I mean, you're suspended for the next game or 2, right? They don't wait and then make a decision after the fact. Guys, we can talk about that for a long time. We all agree that Irad is one of the best jockeys in the world, and he's just much better than that. He needs to be better than that, period. And I talked about Irad last Thanksgiving, not this past Thanksgiving, the one before that, on Matt Bernier's show about some of the rides he gave at Del Mar in the 2020 Thanksgiving card. So this has been going on for quite a while, but not to the extent that he did on Friday. Gentlemen, I think the biggest story out of New York in general is usually the Belmont Stakes. I mean, it's the biggest race of the year in New York. Paul, I'll let you go ahead first. Incredible race. And of course, it was the fastest first quarter in history with Hot Rod Charlie and Essential Quality dueling out in the stretch. What thoughts or memories do you have of that day?
Well, I was fortunate to be there, Howard, which was, I love the Belmont Stakes. And, it really was, we call them the classics, but, they're not always classics, no disrespect to Drosselmeyer, but, Drosselmeyer is not.
I'm going to tell Bill Mott you said that.
Well, Bill might agree. But what I'm saying, this was a classic race. I mean, Hot Rod Charlie is a damn good racehorse. Like you, Howard, I maybe thought he was just a little better than he was going into the Breeders' Cup, but we won't. You
had to go there.
Well, hey. But anyway, it was, Essential Quality, and it kind of parlays into, if you talk about New York, the year Brad Cox had, he wins the Belmont and the Travers with that horse. And, the 3 biggest races in New York, I think we agree, are the Belmont, Travers, and Whitney. And he wins the Whitney with Nick's Go. So, but the Belmont really, to see those horses throw it down and Hot Rod Charlie not give it up going that 1.5 miles, it was something to see.
And if I could be wrong, but it was pretty hot that day too. I mean, so
it was warm.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
It was warm.
Pete, thoughts on the Belmont? Also, touch a little bit on some exciting jockey and trainer wonderful things that happened in New York. For example, Orlando Noda had a lot of wins and sort of a breakthrough year with his stable. Luis Saez winning the riding title at Saratoga over the Ortiz brothers. And Chad was a little bit down, really, than past years. Talk a little about the Belmont and any trainers and jockeys that come to mind from New York this year.
Yeah, I agree with you and Paul on the Belmont. As soon as I read the one thing you mentioned in the email about probably the biggest memory or the biggest race from the year at Naira or at one of the tracks, the Belmont is the first thing that came to mind, just because of the guts, the stretch drive. I mean, anytime you can get a stretch duel down the lane like that, it always leaves a searing impression. So it was definitely my moment of the year. And it was one where I didn't really enjoy the New York racing as much this year. A lot of front runners, a lot of non-aggressive rides. And I know you and I have talked about this on probably the pod before.
Yeah.
And Belmont used to be my favorite meet. and I just didn't enjoy it. It was funny when I told my wife I was coming on to talk about New York. She's like, she doesn't know anything. And she said, isn't that the track that you hated all summer that you said was terrible all summer, talking about Saratoga? And I was like, yeah, but I did have my biggest pick 5 hit ever at Saratoga. So I have mixed feelings, but the Belmont is probably the most memorable moment and race that I saw and that we all saw, I think, at any of the meets. As for the other question, so I agree. The one thing I liked, and with Noda and with like Baker and Atris and even just some of the other trainers who don't get the publicity and aren't at the top of the trainer standings every year, you just enjoy that. I just like to see someone coming up, and not every race is, oh, I'm going to bet Pletcher or Brown or Clement or Maker, depending on early in the year. You just want a bigger pool, and you don't want it to just be, hey, the best trainer wins every race, and it gets a little mundane after a while. You like some up and coming blood to rise to the top as well.
Unless you can get Chad Brown at 8-1 to open up the pick 6.
Well, that's nice.
Which was crazy. Yeah, and also Paul, there were some guys that had some injuries. It's always going to happen. Lizcano had an injury, Carmouche had an injury and missed the entire meet at Saratoga. But those guys are just such warriors, aren't they, Paul? They came back and they're riding fantastically, especially Lizcano on the turf in the last month or two here.
Yeah, and that that takes us back to the IRAD thing and why it's such a reckless thing. It's so easy for those guys to get hurt when everyone's doing it straight up. Caramouche is a really good story. I actually was at the Wood Memorial when he won on Bourbonic at 1,000,000 to 1. Just struck lightning. And
has the race ended yet? By the way, I think they timed that with with a sand glass.
By a second and a half, it was the slowest Wood Memorial ever run by 1.5 seconds. But anyway, you digress. But he was at Saratoga. I saw him. I was up the 9 or 10 days. I was up there over 2 trips. He was around. He was smiling. He's what's good about, we talk about the negatives, but there's a guy who's always smiling and gives you an honest effort and is not, Pete, one of those guys who you will accuse of a non-aggressive ride.
No. Definitely not. That's why you probably missed him for a while. We missed some of that aggression.
Yeah, and Lizcano, Howard, you bring up a good point. Frankly, if Jose Lizcano rides on any other circuit, he's a frontline, go-to guy. He's very, very good.
He reminds me a lot of Junior Alvarado, just sort of a journeyman who does not get a lot of credit. His horses always seem to go off at a price, and he also always gives you a good ride, and he's just very unheralded. So when I think Lizcano, I don't know what you think about that comp, but I think Junior Alvarado is like right in that mix there.
Yeah, he could as well. That's a tough room. And then when you talk about Saratoga, when guys are shipping in, Pratt's flying in for the weekend to ride 4 for Chad Brown, and Ryan Moore is flying overseas to get Japan into trouble. There's great jockeys.
Wait a minute, Japan didn't run that well in the next start either, though, Paul.
No, he has not run well, but he would have won that anyway. We don't.
How do I know Japan was going to come?
We don't want to get tied up on my losses because you don't have enough time.
No, we don't, Paul. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm going to let Pete go ahead and sort of finish your segment out. Any thoughts on what Paul said? And then Pete, also, I found out today, I think it's pretty well known that it looks like a synthetic service is coming into Belmont. I don't know if you heard about that, but that is in the works. So this trend of putting in synthetic tracks looks like it's growing into New York probably next year, I would assume.
Yeah, so just real quick on what Paul was talking about, and we were talking about the non-aggression, and you mentioned Saez winning the Saratoga title, which was a pretty big shock, and I think a lot of it was just based on his aggression and his willingness to just either go to the front when he could or just be aggressive and take advantage of the jockeys that weren't. And I think if you do that, he showed what you can do. You could jump right to the top of the standings. As for the synthetic, I did see that, and it's one of those things I saw on Twitter where a bunch of people were some people were up in arms and didn't like it. To me, it's good for safety. Great. If they run on it, great. You just handicap the race and you handicap the surface. And I don't like to get too nitpicky about any of that stuff. I mean, if it's done with a good conscience, which I don't know if it always is, but You know, I like it if it's good for safety. I like it if it just, hey, if you leave it, you're not having these turf races that are washed off and you have 4-horse fields all the time, basically every day, it feels like. I mean, if you can get full fields, you can keep the horses healthy. It's okay in my book.
Totally agree. Listen, guys, I really appreciate you being on the show. I consider you guys friends, even though we have never met yet. Paul, I would almost consider it a guarantee that I will be at Saratoga next summer. I'll talk to you more
Howard,
about
you're
that
booked.
later.
You're booked with Doc Mora. You're
I'm
booked
very
into
excited. Pete,
mansion.
maybe you can join us at some point. Love to meet both you guys in person. Look forward to having you guys on this show in the future. Thanks for spending some time on the 100th show tonight. Take care, guys.
Congrats, Howard.
Thanks, and congrats,
Thank you very much,
Howard.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. All right, two great guys from the East Coast. They're talking about New York. Now, ladies and gentlemen, and again, once you're guests on the show, feel free to stay on and listen behind the scenes if you like. Let's get into the next video, the next score we had. This one was one of my most proud moments of the entire year, I have to say. This was episode 33. We were previewing Kentucky Oaks Day. I think you might know what happened here. This is the Friday before the Kentucky Derby, and I spoke at length about a horse I loved in the 8 Bells. Let's go ahead and bring up the video, and you'll find out who I'm talking about. I know a lot of people who watch the show scored on this horse. Now, the other A, and I am very, very interested in this horse in this race on Friday, is the 7 Obligatory. About a month ago, when I was doing the preview for the Fairgrounds Oaks Day, so you'd have to go back and watch my weekend preview of the Louisiana Derby preview day. You go back and look at my, I don't know what number it was. I talked about Obligatory's maiden breaker at Gulfstream. I'm not going to. All right, so again, we could go on all day. That was me just talking a little bit about Obligatory. This horse was a big price. Went off at 16-1 in the 8 Bells, and I was watching the race. She was pretty far back, but it was very fast paced. Everything sort of worked out the way I wanted. All I needed is for Obligatory to kick in the stretch, and boy, did she kick in and make her presence known nationally. This is Obligatory winning the 8 Bells on Oaks Day.
Euphoric on top as they make their way around the far turn. Windmill, 3/4 of a length back, running in second. Day out of the office, coming up to them 3 wide with 3 furlongs to go. Just a length and a half off the lead. And Day out of the office is charging up toward the front now. And right behind her is Caramel Swirl, who's getting into the mix too as they come to the top of the stretch. Off the turn and into the stretch here. And Day out of the office has taken charge, opening up by 3. And then it's Abrogate on the far outside from last. A late move coming down the center of the track from Obligatory. And here she comes. Here comes Obligatory from the back of the pack to run down Day out of the office and win the 8 Bells.
That gave a lot of people on this channel who watched and liked the horse like I did a very nice score. That was probably the biggest moment of the year up to that point. Even though Mishriff was a slightly bigger price, that was on the biggest stage. Anytime you can find a large price horse on a big stage, that makes you feel good. And again, folks, I've been wrong many times. We're all going to be wrong many times, especially when you price shop. But winning a stake race and picking a horse on top at a big price within the pick 5 sequence on a big race day was a good feeling, and I hope a lot of you cashed. If you cashed on Obligatory, please put that in the comment section below or in the live chat because that was an awesome score when she rolled down the track, center of the track. Wow, that was a great feeling. Congratulations for Obligatory and the connections for getting up in the 8 Bells. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I go ahead and look up what's coming next. By the way, we are going to be taking a little break in about 20 minutes or so. We're going to have a very short 5-minute halftime break, but we've got a lot of great people coming up. Let me just tell you very quickly who we have coming up in the show. Davey Lane from Europe is about to be coming on here in just a minute. We also have Matt Cutera from Adelphi. We're going to have Scott Shapiro and Kevin Kilroy from Churchill Downs Incorporated for the Kentucky team. Vic Stauffer, folks, Vic Stauffer is coming on later on the show to represent the race callers that have been on this show. Our Canterbury connection, Jeff Madej, Brian Aragoni, and Angela Herman will be on later, talk about Minnesota and horse racing for the year. And then two other people from California representing our California connection. We're going to have Magic from the Magic and Mike show on the Thoroughbred Racing Dudes will be on later. And then we're going to end the show with the BC champ, Matt Miller. So we've got a lot of great guests coming on here later. And the next guest, and because of the time situation, folks, this next guest was a tape. So this is not a live segment. This was previously recorded. Davey Lane has been awesome. He's been on my show a few times. He's a great punter, handicapper in Europe. And I'm about to show you here as I bring this on here momentarily. This was a segment that I filmed with Davey Lane just a few days ago to talk about what happened in Europe this year and also talk about the biggest, by far, the biggest score that we gave out on the HHH Racing podcast this year, a score that was 60-1 on a horse that ran during the Royal Ascot meet. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is previously recorded. It's approximately 15, 16 minutes of myself with Davey Lane, our wonderful guest handicapper from the UK, to talk about European racing in 2021. Everyone sit back and enjoy. I now welcome to the show our friend from the UK, Mr. Davey Lane. He's been on our show several times. We're so happy he can join us tonight on the 100th episode show. Davey, how are you doing there today?
I'm doing well, and it's my pleasure to be on the 100th show, and I'm glad to have a run of shows, appearances on the show, and look forward to many in the future.
Absolutely. So, Davey, just very quickly, tell everyone how you found the HHH Racing podcast over there in Europe.
I found the HHH Racing podcast. I was following the Matt Bernier show, formerly of DRF and now of NBC. I noticed you were a winner of a competition he had on for guests. I kind of paid attention to it. Then I realized you were a namesake of someone I knew back in the day. And I said to myself, oh, I'll watch this guy when you appeared as a winner the second time. And then it dawned on me you were a genuine forensic punter, that unlike a lot of the racing media, you were actually going through horse by horse. And I appreciated that, because a lot of racing media is just focusing on 2 or 3 horses in a race and then moving on to the next. And that was refreshing. So I started following it. Somehow I met you on Twitter, somehow or other. And then it went from there. So that's pretty much how I found you.
Well, you've been fantastic. And just to let you know, and the viewers know, the highest rated show on the HHH Racing podcast was episode 48. It was the Breeders' Cup show, episode 48. We'll talk about here in a minute. But the Breeders' Cup Euro preview, the highest rated show here with Davey Lane on the HHH Racing podcast. So pleasure to have you on. I know we'll have you on again next year. Let's go ahead and talk about some highlights of 2021 European racing season. One horse in particular you think stands out over all the rest in Europe this year.
The overwhelming highlight is St. Mark's Basilica. I mean, winning the Group 1s against his own sex, and then going ahead and just beating the 4-year-olds, resoundingly beating them, strongly beating them. Late season winner of a Group 1, a 2-year-old the previous year, Frankie Dettori, was a 10-to-1 shot in that race. But then went out of the consciousness of the UK betting public because the owners put the horse, who's bred by has a French sire, in the French Poulain and the Prix de Jockey Club, which is the equivalent of the 2000 Guineas and Derby for the French, and won those races where they're Mendicibel aboard, like push button stuff. I mean, absolutely impressive. So even though the horse was out of the consciousness, by the time later in the summer it was lined up to race the 4-year-olds, it went off favorite in both the major races it ran, which was again in the Eclipse, beating Mishrif and Adabe like handily, by 3 or 4 lengths. And then in the Irish Champion Stakes, taking care of Tanawa, and the other 3-year-old that was on the scene, Poetic Fleur. Both dominant displays, although the Irish Champion Stakes was a very, very tight race with the potential for disqualification because the horse dragged Tanawa out. It was a gut buster for Tanawa in the end, and we can get to that later. But super impressive. And given the passing of Galileo, very, very important for the Coolmore operation to have this particular sire with all the various crossbreeding implications down the line. So important stuff.
I remember watching that particular race, the Irish Champion Stakes, live, or the British Champion Stakes, that's live.
Yeah.
The quicken that those horses showed in the final
Yeah.
quarter mile was absolutely unbelievable. It was a very exciting race to watch. You brought up Turnau. Let's shift to the Breeders' Cup just a little bit, because I know there's a lot of interest by yourself and other punters in the UK. There were a plethora of participants from not only Europe but Asia as well, and the foreigners did very well. Let's talk about the one that did not do well. Tarnawa was a complete disaster in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Went off favorite and just didn't fire, probably because the previous efforts just was perhaps just tired or just couldn't replicate that effort.
Horses are not machines, and even the best trainers can only get a top horse, to peak twice a season, and to expect, when a horse finishes second by a short distance in a hard race, I mean, it's, the horse doesn't really know it finished second, I mean, it's ran its gutbusters, and had it won the Arc in those conditions, it would have been retired as an Arc winner, a Breeders' Cup winner the year before and an Arc winner. And I think it was just pressure to go over and defend the crown after not winning the Arc, and probably was a bad decision in the end. The horse was done for the year.
Yeah, no, John Gosden was a little bit concerned,
No, Demet Wells
in the lead up to the race, more about, I think, the track, the turf, although the turf was absolutely fine. But, she gave me all the pleasure I needed last year in the Breeders' Cup. So, like you said, she didn't really owe anyone anything. It was just a little disappointing the way she went out.
Yeah. But that's racing, and you have to be aware of the peaks and the troughs. I mean, the genius of racing is not following the sheets and the numbers, and is having a sense of where these troughs are going to come.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what positive about the Breeders' Cup. Charles Appleby had 3 horses that won. They were absolutely outstanding in Modern Games on Friday, and then you had Ubir, a horse I know that you talked about on the show that I frankly didn't like, that upset the Breeders' Cup Turf. And then Space Blues, who I know you were extremely happy because you had a future bet on Space Blues that you talked about on the show.
Right, exactly. And Appleby is a trainer that you ignore at your peril. I mean, those 3 horses were plotted for this race a long time in advance. They each came with another horse from the same yard, riding shotgun, basically. All good horses, but this is Appleby's technique. Not tag team, not team racing, but a horse, when it has its compatriot in the field or something, is more comfortable a little bit. They recognize their stablemate. It helps them. Calms them down a little. Well,
absolutely.
We had issues in the gate with one of them, but this is important. It's important for traveling too. When the horse is on a plane and it knows its buddies there, this is important. So Appleby did that, and in prior recent years, he did the same thing in Australia, winning all the big pots over there, the Group 1 pots. COVID came, Australia became more difficult to go to, and he totally hyper-focused on the USA. And like a lot of trainers in Britain right now, because the prize money is very poor, as one Australian trainer said, Lee Friedman, he said, they're racing for bags of potato peels in the UK, and that's true. And that's why the British trainers are looking at the States and they're looking at Australia and Asia. And that's the detriment of this British racing.
David, let's talk about maybe one on the track and one off the track, perhaps, topics or things to look for that American bettors would be interested in for the 2022 European season.
Okay, well, on the track, weak season for O'Brien, Bar St. Mark's Basilica, I mean, and then the late possible exception of a horse called Luxembourg late in the year, which won a Group 1 late in the year. So there's a potential for battle lines being drawn between the 2 big howitzers, that shells in the howitzer that Appleby has in Native Trail and Modern Games, and then maybe Luxembourg and O'Brien. So there again, we'll have the game between the lads and the Sheikh. This is what British racing is: the Irish against the Arabs. This is what it is. Okay, so that's the big focus, I would say, for next year. Also on the track, if we can look at a couple of things, then we'll go off the track. It's important to know that the winner of the Arc, the German horse, stays in training as a 4-year-old, and then we'll see. A lot of people discounted it, but German racing is good stuff, and it's proven it time and again. Finally, from Australia, Chris Waller, the trainer of Winx and the trainer of this year's Melbourne Cup winner, is bringing that Melbourne Cup winner to run in the Arc next year. The owners, that's a big pot, but he also is bringing horses to run in the British summer. So watch out for that. That'll make it very interesting, and there could be a lot of value for American punters playing British races with these Chris Waller horses in the summer next year. Okay, off the track, there was a raid on the 2 Irish stables, 2 Irish barns a few months ago, and that still has to come out of the wash. There's a lot of speculation about the drugs and the racing, and will there be a Lance Armstrong moment or not? I don't know. I can't speculate. And finally, in Britain, the knives are out for British horse racing because we have a review, a British parliamentary review. This is the committees in the parliament, just like in the Congress in the US, and they're looking into the Gambling Act in Britain. It's been like the Wild West in Britain in gambling in many respects. However, what that is a lot of people don't understand the difference between gaming and gambling. And Britain's problems is with gaming. It's with people playing the lottery. It's with people playing online casinos. And then a lot of the young people who in the past would have bet horses are betting football, and they're betting it fast and loose. And that's the real issue. And horse racing, because it's kind of iconically related to gambling, gets lumped in the same pot. There's a bit of an unholy alliance in the British Parliament with a few born-again Christians and liberal do-gooders who want to attack this issue, which it is an issue, but they're gonna go after horse racing, and really that's a problem, of course, but it's not the hyper fuel problem that these other things are doing to the gambling industry, gaming. When I say gambling industry, I mean the gaming aspect of things.
Sure.
Okay.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens on and off the track in Europe next year. There's a lot of fascinating stories. I'll tell you one fascinating story from this year. Davey Lane, folks, who of course is with us tonight. I'm so glad you can join us. Excellent punter from the UK. He's been on our show several times. Gave out a tip. And Davey, as I go ahead and bring this up, have you ever given a tip on a horse to a friend, anyone you know, that was at the price of the horse that we're about to show?
I have actually. Yeah, but it's mostly 33-1 shots I've picked. So
well, this horse right now, we're gonna go ahead and bring it on screen. This horse right here, folks, right there, Ray Shun. Davey was on the show in June, actually the morning of the first day of Royal Ascot, and Ray Shun, the 6th horse here, which you saw on screen, was in the 5th race, the 5 o'clock race. It was called the Ascot Stakes. It was a 2.5-mile event. We're going to go ahead and watch about 30 seconds of what Davey Lane said about Ray Shun, who again, folks, went off at 60. That's right, 6-0 to 1. Then we'll go ahead and watch the end of the race. This was Davey Lane, episode 48 of our show.
With William Buick booked for a shrewd trainer, Ian Williams. This trainer is a dual-purpose trainer. Has horses over the fences and on the flat, and he's got 2 in this race, and that's always a clue from me that when a trainer and a connection puts 2 in a race, I'm always aware of what are they up to. And in that respect, even though Rashun would have been 20-1 earlier in the week and is now as big as 66-1, that's not because of money. It's the bookie trying to entice people. I think the firm ground, that's the spot play, the bomb player of the day, Rashun.
That would be tremendous if you get that horse. That would make my obligatory. I also liked Mishrif, by the way, that I gave out in the Saudi Cup at 19-1. That I was very proud of this year. But that if Rayshun comes through today, wow. So that was that was of course your opinion on Rayshun. As I go and bring up the replay, Davey, when you were looking at the PPs, the past performances, do you recall saying like, I absolutely love this horse. I cannot believe that he's going to be a big price. I mean, did this horse just stand out right away to you? Or do you have to do some deep digging?
Yeah, I did deep digging, but it did stand out. It's, as I said, it stood out for two. And there's actually one aspect I didn't mention when I spoke to you. There was a horse in the race by a national hunt trainer called Willie Mullins, and he's been bringing horses over for those flat races in the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, and winning them. And because he had a horse in that race, it went off, I don't know, 4-1 favorite or 7-2 favorite, but for a race with 20 plus horses, I think there's a good price. And that caused the drift on Rayshun and a few other horses, because a lot of people were just blindly betting that horse. I forget the name.
Let's go ahead and watch. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the last the stretch run here by Rayshun, who's going to be in the gray colors on the inside, angling out, folks, in late stretch to win for Davey Lane, myself, and all the viewers of the HHH Racing Podcast at 60-1. Here it is, folks.
Where are the challengers coming from? Lucky Deal and Rayshun in behind. Then Untold Story. Postilio trying to come from the back of the field. Cape Gentleman is trying to make some ground, but has got an awful lot to do from where he is inside the 2. And now Golden Rules is challenging under Frankie Dettori. Rayshun, Rochester House Weekends, Mancini down the outside. Coeur de Leon, Elysian Flame on the inside. It's up for grabs. They run inside the furlong. And it is Rayshun who's battling away here. MC Muldoon is now flying down the outside under Ryan Moore. Rayshun chased all the way by MC Muldoon as they run close to the finish. Rayshun and MC Muldoon. Here comes the line. Rayshun to
I have to say, Davey, watching it live, first of all, and folks, we only about 2 more minutes left with Davey Lane. We really appreciate it. The first thing I just want to say, Davey, is one of my biggest regrets of the year is I will admit I only had $10 to win on this horse because I had full faith in you, but when someone gives you a 60-1 tip, you're like 60-1. I mean, come on, right? So that was one regret. The other thing I will say is when Ryan Moore was storming down the middle of the track on the outside, I wasn't so sure Rayshun was going to hold on.
Well, that was the Willie Mullins horse I spoke about from the National Hunt trainer, the steeplechase trainer from Ireland, and he books Ryan Moore, and it's expected to win. And basically, it did win, except for Rayshun. You know, you saw how good the horse was. That's why there was a lot of money on the horse. But Rayshun was drawn very well. It had wins over the firm ground once a year for the previous 4 years. And the other factor was the owner. The owner, this iconic Palestinian refugee guy who runs his horses predominantly at Chester Racecourse in the Cups races. By Cups races, I mean longer distance races. And because of COVID, that particular race had been cancelled that year. So he clearly got into a focus of getting this horse ready for the Ascot race. And that's what he did. And the fact that he booked William Buick, who's the top one, second in the championship this year behind Oisin Murphy, said something to me. And I put all those variables together, and that stuck out. And he was initially 20-1 in the market. He only got pushed out because the bookies were trying to entice people, and a lot of money was coming on this MC Muldoon. So you've got it.
Well, that was as they say in over in Europe and UK, that was the roughie of the year. Unbelievable. Davey, it was fantastic. And please comment down below the video player, folks, or up in the live chat if you cashed on Rayshun, because I know a lot of people watching the show did. Davey Lane, it's been a pleasure to have you on tonight on the 100th show. I know we look forward to having you on future shows, especially with the Saudi Cup and, of course, Maidan racing here in the early part of the year. Any final thoughts, Davey, before I let you go tonight?
Yeah, one quick final thought. I also gave out Queen Supreme as a roughie at the Breeders' Cup, and that didn't come in. The poor horse had to do a lot of quarantining to get around the world. I didn't talk about Marsh Lorraine, which I actually had at 66-1 in a bet, and I needed our friend Hot Rod Charlie to come in the final to win. Yeah, and it cost me 6 figures actually that the Charlie didn't come in. Because I lined up this Marsh Lorraine with a bunch of other horses, and anyway, hey, that's life, you're this far away from like the big win, and you don't get it. But there you go.
Well, Davey, thanks again. We look forward to future shows. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and have a fantastic rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Howard. It's a pleasure, and continued success.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Davey Lane, who did a great job. He's done a great job several times on this show. In fact, the most views of any show of all 100 was my Breeders' Cup European horse preview with Davey Lane. So, Davey, thanks again for joining us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited about this next guest. Now, when I bring this next guest on, people are like, "Who's this? I don't remember him being on the show before." He has not been on the show before. You'd be right. But this next gentleman, who I'm bringing on from the Adelphi Racing Club, Mr. Matt Cutera, has some very exciting news and announcements and information. So I hope you're going to listen very carefully. And then after we bring on Matt onto the show, I'm going to show a short video, and then we're going to take a quick break. So, from the East Coast and the Adelphi Racing Club, please welcome Mr. Matt Cutera. Matt, how you doing tonight?
Hey, what's up, Howard? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining the show. I know some people might be familiar with the Adelphi Racing Club with all the promos and commercials they've heard on Fox and In the Money and etc. For people who are not aware of who you are or the Adelphi Racing Club, tell us what the partnership is about.
Sure. First and foremost, thanks for having me on. Congrats on the 100th show, and kudos for using the platform to support such a good cause with the TRF. And also, a ton of credit I give to you for wearing the same outfit that you did on the recorded clip, so it just looks seamless. That's impressive.
I was wondering if anyone noticed that.
I did.
And by the way, thanks for the donation to TRF. We greatly appreciate that.
That's a phenomenal cause. Happy to do it. Yeah, so Adelphi Racing Club, I've owned racehorses for almost 2 decades. I started owning in partnerships and syndicates as a partner myself, not someone running it. Was fortunate enough about 5-6 years ago to be in a position to own my own horses, and ventured out and started buying horses at auctions and claiming horses here and there, and very quickly kind of realized that I enjoyed owning horses with other people more than I enjoyed owning horses just by myself. And I got hooked up with a few other owners in the business through mutual contacts, through trainers, things like that. Started owning horses with 2 or 3 different people here or there, owning a half of a horse and splitting it with someone else, that kind of thing. And really just enjoyed the experience of my direct line of communication with the trainers as a sort of solo owner. But at the same time, enjoyed the camaraderie of owning horses with other people, hanging out at the track together, celebrating the wins, commiserating over the losses, texting back and forth about, what, the next race for our horse would be and things like that. And so about 2 years ago, I had a conversation with a couple of guys who I've owned dozens of horses with now, Jordan Zotz and Brian Hahn, who have very similar backgrounds to myself, started on the partnership side and, transitioned to owning their own horses. And, we all kind of felt the same way that, the partnership model was where the fun was. And so we set out to start a syndicate that merged the benefits of sort of the traditional syndicate, partnership model and the solo ownership experience. So we're a little bit more of a boutique partnership. We don't have as many partners as some of the bigger, syndicates that you hear about. And that's kind of by design. And we try to basically, treat the experience, like, when I own horses with Jordan or I own horses with Brian. And, we do a lot of our communication, directly via text instead of email newsletters and things like that. Just try to create more personal experience. And we actually started at Adelphi. We raced our first horse the day that Aqueduct closed to fans due to COVID, which was not ideal timing. But we had a fun time of it over the last 2 years. Have had a lot of success operating the partnership. We didn't, really try to grow it or expand it until recently because we didn't want, to push on the Adelphi front when people couldn't go see their horses in the morning and couldn't hang out the races in the afternoon and things like that. But with, Saratoga being, pretty normal this year and the world, knock on wood, returning to some semblance of normalcy, we thought it was the right time to push ahead. And so we're adding new partners. We've added a roster of yearlings, and we're really excited about what the rest of this year and 2022 will bring.
Yeah, let's talk a little about the roster of yearlings. You have three or a few yearlings, and I actually have some pictures. And then after we talk about the yearlings, I think there's an announcement that a lot of people might be interested in. So give me a second here. And again, we're gonna have to be very brief. So just talk a little bit about the yearlings. Here's one I'm gonna bring up here, and this is of course from their website, folks. So you can see this from their website. This is a taproot yearling that you folks bought at the sale.
Yeah, we're really excited about this one. It's a taproot colt. We bought him at Keeneland September. As you can see from the picture, and if you go on the website, look at his walk video and things like that, he is a big, scopy, nice looking, two-turn looking horse. Obviously by Taproot, who's a freshman sire, so a bit unproven, but very well bred, being out of Taproot himself. A lot of success at the racetrack at classic distances, including winning the Belmont Stakes. And he looks, his offspring, our Taproot yearling, looks the part of that two-turn type horse. His mom is a dam by the name of Eccentric Spinster.
By the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but because I care very much about horse racing and I'm always interested, I actually literally this past weekend watched every single race. That's the great thing about technology, isn't it? I watched every single race that Eccentric Spinster ran. A nice horse, could run short, could win going long also.
Yeah, and you probably noticed she had a bit of speed too, and that's one of the things that we liked about this horse is he looked like a two-turn horse. He was bred, obviously, by Taproot, a two-turn horse. If you go deeper on the female side of his family, the second dam is an arch dam, so there's a lot of stamina built in even there. But Eccentric Spinster could win from 5.5 to a mile. She was a stakes performer, and she had some speed as well. So, the hope with this horse is that, she, influxes some speed into that stamina pedigree. And, when you get into, late in his 2-year-old year, if he shows some ability and, is the type of horse that is flashing talent, he's not one that, we feel like we'll have to worry about. Will he stretch out to a mile? Will he stretch out to a mile and an eighth? He's got that stamina, sort of built in. So classic distance, sort of dream type horse. Obviously, a lot of things have to go right, but we're excited about it.
Sure. And let's talk about this young lady who's gotten probably a little more pub because, and by the way, that colt does not have a name yet. So we'll have to name that. You guys are going to have to name that Taproot colt. And by the way, I saw Tappet and Taproot at Gainesway a few months ago. So that was pretty cool. Let's talk about this young lady who has a very popular name, especially fans of Saratoga, Solevo, a fantastic Italian restaurant in Saratoga Springs. And this filly has some very interesting pedigree also.
Yeah, so we have a lot of partners who are from the Saratoga area, and they essentially live in Solevo. So we knew at some point we were going to have to name a horse that. So excited about the name for sure. She is really interesting. She's out of Street Sense. He's probably had his best year as a stallion this past year with Maxfield and several other high-profile performers. Very solid stallion. Out of a female family that's European, a second dam named La Cocina, which is sort of one of the reasons we got to Solevo, the connection to cooking and food, has produced several stakes horses, several graded stakes winners. It's a full sister to a graded stakes winner, a half sister to a graded stakes horse. So a lot of pedigree deep or under the second dam, for this one. And this one's first dam is a younger mare. She's produced now 3 foals. The first sold for 180,000 as a yearling last year and is in training as a 2-year-old on the West Coast. She produced Solevo, and then she has a weanling by Gunrunner that just sold for over 400,000 at the latest Keeneland breeding stock sale. So she's a young dam. She hasn't produced anything at the track yet. But she's getting very, very heavily supported by quality sires, Speightstown, Street Sense, Gunrunner, and her babies clearly look the part because they're selling for good prices at the sale. And so we think, with this one, she looks very speedy, very early and precocious. She's the one that we hope, we're making a start, early on at Saratoga and then going to Solevo to celebrate however she runs after that. She's got that precocious sort of early turf look to her. With the pedigree, it's a young, mare, but, with the deep female family that she has and with how much, her first dam's being supported, she's got every opportunity to have some residual value when her racing career is over. If the babies run to their looks and to their sale prices.
Well, Matt, we appreciate all the information. And by the way, to go on the Adelphi website, folks, you can learn about other horses and more about their partnership. It's a great partnership that I've gotten to know a little bit recently. A bunch of really good guys out of New York that are younger than me, so I like that even more, and very enthusiastic about horse racing. Matt, there's two very important, really important. I teased some surprises that were going to happen on this show. I've got two surprises for everyone that I want to say. I'll say one and you can say the other. The one that I want to say is Adelphi is going to be a sponsorship partner of the HHH Racing podcast. We're going to be doing some shows about the partnership. We're going to have Matt and some of his associates on to talk about Adelphi, to talk a little about behind the scenes, which really a lot of people don't get to see in terms of sales and what it takes to get a horse to the racetrack, and some cool videos and a lot of other things. So Matt is going to officially be a sponsor of the HHH Racing podcast. That is in the works. And the other big announcement, Matt, is
you are going to be a partner of Adelphi, and you own and are a partner of the two horses we just talked about, which we're super excited about. I think I've been, watching the show, listening to the podcast, whatever you want to call it, for a while. You've got a great community of people, so we're excited about, introducing Adelphi to your community in a big way through the sponsorship side of it. It's been a tough week, as you talked about on the podcast, for horse racing. For us, one of the big things we want to do is introduce people to horse ownership, and get more people involved on that side of the business. Super excited to have you involved. I believe this is your first horse or first two horses that you've owned.
With my brother as well. My brother and I were going to be co-owning a portion of those two horses. And I don't want to get into details, folks, on percentages or dollars, but let's just say this is not a micro share. I'm not putting in, this is not like myracehorse.com, which I have no problem with My Racehorse, but they do like 0.00001%. My brother and I are putting in some significant money into these two horses, and we are really excited, Matt, not only to meet, the folks at Adelphi. We're actually going to see the horses in a few weeks, folks. We're going to go down to Florida, my brother and I, we're going to see the horses at the farm in Ocala. Matt Cutera, thanks for sharing that exciting news with everyone in the HHH Racing Podcast community. I look forward to working with you folks down the road, and look forward to seeing, I'll say I almost said our horses hopefully make it to the track and be successful. Matt Cutera, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Congrats again.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Take care. Have a great night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. I'm a horse owner. It is official with my brother. We have a piece of Salevo, and we also have a piece of the Tapper Colt. We're really excited about both of those horses, and hopefully they are going to be healthy and sound and be able to make it to the track and win some races. We're hopefully going to have a lot of fun with them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to show one very short video, and then we're going to go ahead and take a short break, and then we have some fantastic guests coming on. So I talked about a horse that I liked a lot, Super Sensational. I'm not going to show you what I mentioned about this horse, but let's just go ahead, and I'm going to bring up Super Sensational. This is a horse that I've talked about a lot on this show, quite a while. She was a price in this race. This race was part of my episode 54 show that I gave out. This race was in July. This is the Grade 3 Victory Ride. I talked about this horse with Andy Serling. And this is Super Sensational winning at 5-1 in the Victory Ride. I'm not sure we're going to have sound. Let's watch her win this race.
As Red Ghost drops out of it. Inject has now moved into third. Super Sensational is on the move on the extreme outside. Australasia is far back as they come down for the 8th pole. And here comes Super Sensational now to take over the lead. It is Super Sensational in front and drawing away. She is pouring it on here in the stretch. Super Sensational was terrific in the Victory Ride Stakes.
Super Sensational went off at 5-1. Another mid to high. Well, that was a mid-price horse, but clearly not even close to being the favorite in that race. And one for myself and the HHH Racing podcast. And that race took place in July. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a very short, about a 3 or 4 minute break, and then we're going to come back. Don't go away, folks. Again, Coming up, Scott Shapiro and Kevin Kilroy from Churchill Downs Incorporated, Vic Stauffer, Jeff Madej, Brian Aragoni, Angela Herman, Magic Collaward from the Thoroughbred Racing Dudes, and Matt Miller will all be on in the second half of the show. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're going to take a short break. I'm going to go ahead and put the banner up for that. There you go. And we will be right back in approximately 4 minutes, folks. Don't go away. Thanks for tuning in to the 100th show of the HHH Racing Podcast. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Hold on, we're going to fix that camera here if I fool a little bit. Sorry about that, folks. All right, there we go. I've got a little technique there with the camera. Thanks for joining us here on the second half of the HHH Racing Podcast. Again, we're here to benefit the TRF, and I want to show everyone very quickly. Take 30 seconds here before I bring on our next very exciting guests here on the show. The way to donate, again, go to sorry, but let me see if we can get that back working. You're going to go to trfinc.org/HHH. Again, trfinc.org/HHH. And I'm having a little issue with the video, so I'm not going to go ahead and show it. But once you go on there, folks, you're going to hit that green donate button. And after you do that, there's a place where you can click a box and comment. And that is where you type in what free gift you'd like, as long as you are donating more than $20. So please donate anything you can. But if you donate more than $20, again, you'll hit that green button, and then there'll be another box to press where it says to comment. And in that comment section, that is where you type in the free gift that you want. Again, all the information there is on at trfinc.org/HHH. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to bring on our next guest. We've been going all throughout the country. We've been covering New York. We covered Europe. We covered other places throughout the country. And now we're going to go to the Midwest, my home. Let's talk about the Kentucky team. I had this gentleman on before to represent Churchill Downs Incorporated. I am very honored to have once again on the show Mr. Scott Shapiro. Scott, how you doing tonight, sir?
Good to be back, Howard. Congrats on the 100th show and all the great stuff you're doing on here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really appreciate you coming on. By the way, Kevin Kilroy said he might be able to come on. We'll see if Kevin pops on. For those of you who don't know Kevin Kilroy, he's doing a great job as one of the new on-air talent with a guy named Joe at Fairgrounds. Scott, so much to talk about in Kentucky throughout this past year. And let me just say this right out, folks, right now. I'm sure a lot of people would love to ask Scott all these, very detailed questions about Baffert and Medina Spirit and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to put Scott in a difficult situation. He works for Churchill Downs Incorporated. Any debates, inquiries, issues that we could talk about have been talked about in other shows. I already brought up with Nick Tamro earlier tonight. And Scott, I certainly don't want to put you in an awkward situation. The first thing I'd like to talk to you about are a lot of positives. First of all, the highlight of Kentucky always is the Kentucky Derby. And unfortunately, we all know about the passing of Medina Spirit. Just awful on every front. But him winning the Kentucky Derby at a price, just wire to wire, was so game, with a very close finish at the wire, which is always exciting for fans.
Yeah, it really was an exciting race this year. And some years, Howard, we see, obviously, usually the Derby winner is a legitimate horse, but occasionally we see a horse never really return to that race. And oftentimes we see, second, third, fourth place type finishers kind of pick up the pieces, but maybe aren't the top of the crop. But we did have a 4-horse essentially run to the wire, basically a blanket finish this year. And it turned out, to be basically a key race. Hard to know what Mandaloon would have done. We didn't get to see him. He got the perfect trip and was unable to get to Medina Spirit. But we know Medina Spirit was legit coming back in the Breeders' Cup Classic with the runner-up. Obviously, essential quality. His resume speaks for itself both before the race and after the race. And Hot Rod Charlie had a fantastic campaign as well. So it was a great rendition of the race, obviously marred by the after effects, but just the race itself was a real good addition and a pretty quality group that hit the wire together.
And Scott, this doesn't happen every year, but I love when these Derby horses continue on running well throughout the year. And you just touched on, there are many horses that didn't just disappear after that race. I mean, the 3-year-old crop this year, whoa. On the female side, too. I cannot wait for next year. And speaking of the female crop, Malathot in a very exciting Oaks, a horse that I personally needed, by the way, singled in the pick 5 over an extremely game search results, who frankly ran better than I thought she did. What a fantastic Oaks race as well.
Yeah, the top 2 did run really well, Howard. Malathot was wide basically the whole way, didn't get off to a great start. Johnny V, the veteran he is, did not panic and kept her in the clear. And, she proved to be best. But like you said, search results, you weren't sure that she was going to be able to maybe get the distance or, exactly be able to perform up to the way she did that day. I know she was one of the logicals in the race, but I didn't love her going in. And both of them flattered their performance, in the race after that effect. Obviously, Malathot coming back most recently running 3rd in the Distaff, a chaotic race at Del Mar there. but they both ran well in New York after the race. Search Results with the win in the Acorn, and Mala Thought with the win in the Alabama Tough Beat in the Coaching Club American Oaks. But yeah, we were fortunate to get good weather for the Oaks in the Derby this year, which is, as we know, not always the case.
No.
And the races lived up to expectations.
So I'm gonna. I know I sent you some topics. I want to jump to a topic that relates to the Derby. So I mean, we do have to talk about one thing, because there is a very exciting future Derby pool every year. A lot of people are very interested in the Derby pool. You're not Nostradamus. You don't know what's going to happen. What do you recommend people do with the Baffert horses, because we're not really sure what's going to happen with them in terms of being able to run in the Derby and all the circumstances around it? I suppose it's possible. Especially unfortunately after the latest situation with Medina Spirit passing away, that some of these horses might go to a different trainer. So for those viewers that are watching right now, Scott, what do you recommend they do with the Derby Future Pool, which is a very exciting bet that a lot of people like to get interested in?
Yeah, it's a tough, it's always very tough this far out, no matter what. It just adds an additional variable, if you will, especially with a horse like Corniche. But, like you said, I'm not Nostradamus with it. But with these pools always, Howard, I think the key is in the first one and the second one at the very least is making sure you get really good value. Now, I know 15-1 might sound like good value in general in a horse race, but with all that has to happen, right, to get to the race, let alone run in it, let alone be under 15-1 when the race goes off, lots has to happen. So my recommendation would be is seeking out horses that you can make cases for that are at least 30-1 or higher, because there's so many things that can happen. Obviously, you bring up the barn with the Baffert horses. That just adds another layer. But even without that, backing horses at relatively short prices this far out can be tricky. And, so that would be the recommendation I have. When we get to pool 2 soon, make sure you're getting good prices, and, not traditional good prices, but good prices in the futures market sense.
Scott, I know this is going to sound like complete redboarding, but I swear on my life that I was going to put a future win bet at 80-1 on Zandon, and I just flat out forgot to do it. If this horse wins the Derby, I am going to be absolutely irate. He actually ran very well, I thought, last weekend. Like you said, there's horses we've never even heard of, folks, that could be the Derby champion, right? Or could debut in January. We have no idea. By the way, of the one horse that I think I would put a future bet on other than Zandon, Command Performance, to me, it was the best 2-year-old this year. I'm sorry, all due respect to Corniche, and that's not about politics or Baffert or anything. I really like Command's Performance future, Scott, and 30-1 is still pretty low for a future bet in my opinion, but that's the one I think that I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing him run. I'm assuming Pletcher is going to take him down to Gulfstream. I'm sorry, go ahead. You wanted to add to that?
No. I think if you're getting 30-1 and placing just one wager, I can understand it. If you start to place multiple ones at 30-1, then you're killing the price on those. And 30-1 is about where I would draw the line. Obviously, some of these horses are gonna, there's some years where the 10-1 shot's gonna end up winning the Derby. I'm, thinking in years past, it's not always gonna be a horse we haven't heard of at this point. But I think when you're thinking about quality wagers, you want to think that way.
Absolutely. Now, other interesting things that happened in Kentucky this year and going forward. The purses are way up. It's fantastic. We're seeing main races. I thought Kentucky Downs was good. That's sort of carried now over to Churchill, and the purses are way up at Churchill. We see field sizes are very good, despite the fact that there was no turf racing this fall and early or late in the fall here, because the turf course is being renovated for next year. There's been big capital improvements with the seating, the casino. Just talk a little bit for people who are not aware of all the changes happening at the actual Churchill Downs plant itself.
Yeah, lots of new seating going up, which basically it works for Derby time of the year. We have plenty of seating the rest of the year. It's a massive building, Churchill Downs. For those that haven't been there, I was mesmerized the first time I went in there. You don't realize Belmont Park, even more so if you've been there, kind of get a feel, but otherwise it's hard to feel. But you mentioned the purses, Howard, and that's because of the historical horse racing influence, and that's why Kentucky Downs originally was able to do that as the casino part funded those things. Now the Churchill Downs Inc. has those sites as well, and it just has made the racing that much better here in Kentucky. The maiden special weight races, you mentioned it, not only are they massive, you get full field sizes, you're attracting some of the best young horses in the game, But, these are changing the way trainers train. There's Dallas Stewart, a guy that I get to talk to from time to time off,
Yeah.
During our racing meets. He made it a point to say, I said, Dallas, you're winning 2-year-old races a lot more than you used to. And he says, yeah, I started working horses out of the gate a little more. And I said, it must have to do with the fact that the game has changed. These are stakes races in terms of purses. So that's just one example of a guy that used to be about 5, 6, 7% with firsters. And now he's winning 3, 4 2-year-old races a meet. So, yeah, they're paying, some of these maiden races are bigger than some stakes races. So, definitely changing the game here in Kentucky. And there's some of my, the most enjoyable races for me to handicap. I know some people like to have a lot of form to look at, but I really enjoy looking at the pedigree, kind of getting a feel for trainer intent and whatnot, and going from there. So I really enjoy that part of it. And it's highlighted on opening day of our fall meet, Stars of Tomorrow 1, and then closing week, the Stars of Tomorrow 2 card that includes the Goldenrod and the Kentucky Jockey Club.
Knowing the deep dive and all the great work you do, Scott, I'd say the over/under on hours you spent on each one of those cards, I'm going to put it at about 4. I don't know where. I might take the over on that one for you, because I know that though I've handicapped those types of cards. They can be a little bit of a headache because you're just looking at so much pedigree, but they are a lot of fun as well. And it's just there are some future stars for sure. And the other big news, of course, this is for a lot of tracks, is just it was great to see the fans back. Right, fans came back into the stands very enthusiastically. Any other than the fans coming back, any other particular races or jockeys or trainers that stood out to you in 2021 in Kentucky and the years that they had?
Well, and first, in terms of the fans, nowhere is it going to be more noticeable than it was on Kentucky Derby Day, because we didn't have fans in that weird September Derby. It was so surreal. And we got about 30 or 40,000 maybe or so back into the building this year. And like I said, we had the perfect day, and what a great, vibe it was. Something you don't take for granted any longer, having people there. The fans really do make the game what it is for people that are at the track and whatnot. In terms of guys that made an impact, it's a good question. I mean, Tyler Gaffalione won riding titles again this year. And I know it's kind of stale news at this point, but man, I mean, this guy has come to Kentucky after being so good in Florida, being a good bug boy, and then really, stepping his game up as a journeyman rider, and then comes here and he's really just a difference-making rider. He's riding for really good barns, don't get me wrong, but it's not as if he's just riding for the top barn and carrying all those, carrying
solid trip after trip from this guy.
Exactly. And then the other jock that, that I think gets a little less credit and doesn't win quite as many races as Tyler, but he's a top tier guy, is Brian Hernandez Jr., veteran jock here. Another guy that is always mentally well prepared, which is, as a handicapper like we are, Howard, you're not always gonna, be right, but you want to get the trip that you envision. And it's great to have a jockey that does the same work as you do and knows how the race is going to go. And I see time after time, a race with no pace, Brian Hernandez Jr. will have his horse, ask out of the gate. If he knows there's a lot of speed, he'll know that. He'll take his horse back. So I always appreciate that part of his game as well. So those are the two that stick out to me. And I probably would have answered the question the same last year, unfortunately.
2 other quick jockeys I'll just mention, then Scott, we're gonna have to let you go. But of course, we so much look forward to having you back. I hope you'll come back on the show. Raylu Gutierrez, I've been talking about this guy. He's going to different meets throughout the country and winning. The guy's just winning. He won at Keeneland also. I mean, we sort of gave Keeneland short shrift. Keeneland is in Kentucky as well, but of course you work for Churchill Downs. But I think Raylu's been great. And I'll just let you end your segment talking about Robbie Alvarado, who I read today is announcing his retirement. He's going to ride his last horse on Saturday. He's really had a very nice long career.
Yeah, Raylu Gutierrez, a great front end rider right now, has really made his mark here on many circuits. He rode Hidden Connection amongst others. And then Robbie, he's going to ride one last mount at Turfway Park this week. What a career it's been for Robbie. The horse I'll remember most him being on is Curlin, one of the best horses I've ever seen. I'm sure you would rank him towards the top of your list as well, Howard. And, Robbie thinking it's just time. It's, he's been riding for a long time now, and, time to hang it up. But what a great career it's been for him. And hopefully he'll enjoy his life after riding racehorses. I know it's a way of life for these guys and tough to kind of make this call, but I'm sure he'll be happy with it.
Yeah, well, speaking of great careers, you're having a great career as well, doing a fantastic job. How about that for a segue? That was all right, right? TV like. Listen, Scott, we really appreciate you having on the show, and I know Kevin will join us at some other time, and Joe as well. You guys have supported this channel tremendously. We love talking to people from Kentucky, whether it be Louisville or Lexington or wherever. Look forward to our next conversation, and good luck with your handicapping going forward at the various bets that I'm sure you will be making.
Thanks, Howard. You too. I appreciate having me, and congrats, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you coming on. Have a great night. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Scott Shapiro. What a great guy. Really appreciate him coming on talking about Kentucky racing. Ladies and gentlemen, the next person, boy, our next guest that we're going to have on in about 5 minutes is a great guy to have on. Vic Stauffer will be coming on in approximately 5 minutes to talk about Oaklawn and a few other things, and I'm really excited to have Vic back on the show. Before we do that, let's take a look at another replay. Ladies and gentlemen, there was great racing that happened at Kentucky Downs. And at Kentucky Downs, there was a horse that won for us a price I gave out. He ended up going off at 5-1, but he was 10-1 morning line. And that horse that I'm going to go ahead and bring up on the screen here right now. Actually, let me go ahead and sorry, I need to do a little bit behind the scenes here so we can hear the sound. Is Gear Jockey. Gear Jockey was a horse that I loved in the sprint. The Kentucky, the Turf Sprint Stakes. It was a grade 3. Let's hear what I had to say about Gear Jockey a few days before the race. I really try to broaden my brain and really look deeper than the obvious. And as you can see, my picks, and folks, Matt and I did not talk about these picks at all. I think Gear Jockey is very, very interesting as well. I'm a sucker for turnbacks, I have to admit that. And usually, Matt, I don't like turnbacks on the turf. But like you said, this is not your normal, turnback. Now, when I say turnbacks, I should clarify. He's been racing 5.5, but he used to be, he was racing in a mile before that. This is a very lightly raced 4-year-old, Matt, that just might be finding what he likes to do best. You got Rusty Arnold. You're going to get a price. I mean, there's no reason for me to take a short price in this race. So I'm very interested in Gear Jockey. So that was my take on Gear Jockey. By the way, for the record, I want to give Matt Bernier credit. And by the way, give him a big thanks for coming on the show more than once as well. He likes Gear Jockey also. Let's go ahead and watch Gear Jockey winning this race at 5-1. He's the 4 horse there, close to the lead, running a huge race to win again for ourselves and the HHH Racing Podcast.
Bombard runs a 22.38 opening quarter mile, and he makes his way to the top of the stretch in front. Bombard turning for home on the lead. Gear Jockey on the outside second, and they're into the stretch. These two are 1-2. There's still a quarter of a mile to run. Imprimis is sent along and behind them and is now up running in third. Fast Boat, Diamond Oops right there. Stubbins got Stormy trying to come through an opening in between horses. It is Gear Jockey. Gear Jockey, the one to catch, arriving at the 16th pole and in the clear from Bombard. Gear Jockey is gonna do it in the $1 million FanDuel Turf Sprint. Diamond Oops.
Sorry, so that was the head on there. Sorry, folks. I thought they were going to be switching to the pan shot, but anyway, Gear Jockey, geared down pretty much, ran very well. Won for us at 5-1. That happened. It was a grade 3, and that happened actually on 9/11, which I talked to Matt about. So very poignant victory, the 20th anniversary of the attacks in 9/11, when Gear Jockey won for us at 5-1. Ladies and gentlemen, while we wait for Vic Stauffer, let me go ahead now and bring on what I wanted to do before very briefly. Again, make those donations for us. You see at the bottom of the screen, trfinc.org/HHH. And again, I'll show everyone, all you have to do is go to that website. Here it is. All you have to do is go to that website, and you can buy, you'll get as a free gift, $20 or more, a water bottle, a koozie, or racehorse note cards, which are very nicely done, some great artwork. $50 or more, you will get your choice of either a beanie, and it's getting cold outside, or a baseball hat. All you have to do, folks, is when you press that green button to make your donation, you can choose how much you want, and then right here in the middle of the screen, see where it says write us a comment. You're going to click on that button, and then right here where my arrow is, you're going to type in what you'd like. Of course, that's only if you make a donation of $20 or more. All the proceeds, folks, every single dollar goes to the TRF, a Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. It's a great cause. Please make sure you donate. It's, of course, tax deductible. We had Kim Weir on the show earlier, and we've already had many, many people donating tonight. And you must donate, by the way, before, you can see on the screen there, you must donate before December 15th if you'd like one of those free gifts. Of course, they're more than happy to take donations anytime, but to be eligible for that free gift, it has to be done by December 15th. And of course, has to be more than $20. So please make sure that you do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we are supposed to be having Vic Stauffer on, but we are live, of course. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep the ball rolling here. And if Vic, I'm not sure, he might have sent me an email. Give me 1 second, folks. Again, we're on live, so I'm just checking. I don't see anything from him, so perhaps he something has gone on, or perhaps he's confused with the time or whatnot. I'm just checking to see a few other things here. Okay, so I don't see any information about him not being able to come on right now, but hopefully he'll be able to come on. Might have been some confusion. I'll just go ahead and talk about a few things before we get on to our other guests. So Oaklawn has started, as everyone knows, and Vic Stauffer, who was on the show earlier this year, did a fantastic job on the show. We had a real deep dive. He was on for like an hour and 45 minutes. And I also just want to say, Vic Stauffer is an excellent contest player. He's given me some advice off air about contests. I met him in person at the BCBC in California. I know he had a very tough beat within the contest with in the distaff. I'm drawing a blank on. He had the Chad Brown horse that just got inched out. That was a brutal beat. A lot of people in the contest, by the way, had that horse. The name is escaping me now. But anyway, it was a pleasure to meet Vic in person. Of course, he's calling races at Oaklawn Park, and they just started their meet. And there's a few interesting things going on in Oaklawn. First of all, they started the meet earlier. There's some great racing. I know Francisco Arrieta had a fantastic first few days of the meet there. I think he won maybe 4 or 5 in a row at one point. There have been some good stake races already down there. And then the Arkansas Derby. The Arkansas Derby has been moved, folks. It's traditionally been 3 weeks before the Kentucky Derby, usually in mid-April. They've decided to change the date of the Arkansas Derby. The Arkansas Derby is now 5 weeks before the Kentucky Derby. So it's going to be, I don't have the exact date. I'm sure you folks can look it up. But the Arkansas Derby is going to be in late March now. I'm assuming it's going to be the same weekend as the Florida Derby, because the Florida Derby is almost always 5 weeks before the Kentucky Derby. So hopefully we'll have Vic on. I'll be very interested to see what he has to say about that. Sorry, I'm just getting some text here, not from Vic Stauffer. So hold on a second as I respond to a text. Folks, we're live. This is the beauty of live television, so to speak. So the Arkansas Derby has been moved up 2 weeks, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that affects the Kentucky Derby trail and whatnot. While we're waiting for Vic, I'm going to go ahead and bring some comments and some questions on the show. Let me see. I'm just going to go ahead and read. Jim has been commenting. He had a nice score on. He didn't have a score on Super Sensational. Oh, yes, he did. Sorry. I got to read. Jim just tags along with me, and Listen, Jim, if you're tagging along with me, that means you've had a lot of great scores. It also means we've had some misses too along the way, but that's of course the nature of horse racing. Thank you, CJ. CJ Andrews from the Dakotas. He's gonna hate me. I think it's South Dakota. I always forget. Sorry, CJ. CJ was a guest on my show. He's sort of a younger handicapper. I don't mean necessarily in age, but not quite as experienced as maybe some of you other people out there. But he's becoming a lot more experienced. I think CJ has now probably been at it for a few years, and I'm sure he's improving and winning some money. Dunbar Road. Thank you, CJ. Dunbar Road, what a brutal beat that Dunbar Road had, CJ. And I know Vic and a bunch of other people need Dunbar Road in the BCBC for like thousands of dollars. I mean, can you imagine losing that photo and losing like thousands of dollars? Oh, wow, you guys had. And the Tucker. How can I forget Tucker? It's CJ's betting buddy. We got to get both you guys on the show. We're going to have both you guys on the show at some point. That was brutal. I did not have the winner, March Lorraine. But Davey Lane, our guest from Europe, actually did have March Lorraine, he told us. So that's really quite amazing. So Oaklawn is going to be having their Arkansas Derby early. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects the horses. They also have a fantastic casino there. They've got a hotel. I think they're putting some stuff up in the infield as well. But the other thing that I was going to talk about with Vic Stauffer was the very interesting debate on who is your 3-year-old champion. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring up some Equibase data. And unfortunately, the passing Medina Spirit, this is really sort of turned into a melancholy conversation. But it's a conversation that has to be had for the simple fact, as I go ahead and bring up the information that I wanted to share. You see it right there. Let me go ahead and split screen here. So what I was going to talk to Vic Stauffer about was, who do you think deserves 3-year-old of the year for the boys? Is it Medina Spirit or is it Essential Quality? So I'd love to hear your comments below the video player and also up in the chat as well. And we'll talk about this conversation for about 7 or 8 minutes. And then we'll go ahead on to a video and our next guest, who will be coming in from Minnesota. I'm very excited to have them. Medina Spirit. Let's take a look at Medina Spirit. Rest in peace, Medina Spirit. He had a great year. I mean, again, I don't care how you feel about Bob Baffert or anything else. You see down below here, in 2021, earned $3.5 million this year and had some great results. Let's go ahead and look. It's every result you see on the screen. I'm going to go full screen here, except for the bottom one. Second, you see right here, folks. Second in the Sham, won the Robert B. Lewis Stakes at San Anita. Second in the San Felipe. Then went to the San Anita Derby. Second again. Of course, the big score in the Kentucky Derby, at least a big score as of right now. Again, it's a whole mess. We'll see what happens with that. I don't know what the hell is taking so long. It's completely, absolutely ridiculous that we don't know, have an official word on that yet. Third in the Preakness, then beat older horses in the next 2 races in the Shared Belief and in the Awesome again. And then, of course, ran a very good second in the Breeders' Cup despite a slight stumble out of the gate. Ran very well. Really had an excellent year, no matter the circumstances. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at, well, actually, before we go to Essential Quality, I do want to point out a few things here. I want to talk about the Shared Belief Stakes. Now, these 2 older, when he beat older horses, I'm just going to show here, he did not beat much. And this is sort of my argument here, and I apologize. It's a little bit small. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here. Let's zoom in. And I apologize for the ads as well. I mean, who did he beat in this race, really? He beat Rock Your World, who was not the same horse at that time. Stiletto Boy, okay. The Great One, Team Merchants. Actually, this was restricted 3-year-old race. I apologize. Really didn't beat much here, with all due respect to Medina Spirit. Again, that was a restricted 3-year-old race. If we go back, now let's take a look at the Awesome Again. Now the Awesome Again is why some people feels like he deserves that because he did beat older horses. But look at the Awesome Again. Again, he won. Okay, full credit. But I mean, who is he beating here? Stiletto Boy, Express Train, Tripoli. I know Tripoli won the Pacific Classic, but you know that might have been a little bit of an aberration. I mean, Tis a Magician who lost on Breeders' Cup Day in a non-Breeders' Cup race. Idol who never came back never ran after that as of now and didn't really come back to his form in the Big Cap. I mean, yeah, he's beating older horses, but I mean, these are not superstars. That being said, he did get to the lead and win. Got to give him credit. And then he ran well. I take nothing away from his effort in the Breeders' Cup, although I was hoping that he would push Nick's Go, of course, but that didn't quite happen. So that's the resume for Medina Spirit. Let's go to Essential Quality now. Now, Essential Quality, almost the exact same earnings there. Again, let me make this bigger. Apologize. Almost the exact same earnings there. You see 3.4 million, so just very slightly less. Let's look at his results. Essential Quality, and you got to start at this Oaklawn race. So wins the Southwest Stakes, Grade 3. Wins the Bluegrass, Troubled Trip in the Derby, finished 4th, but Medina Spirit did beat him, obviously, in that race. Wins the Belmont, wins the Jim Dandy, wins the Travers. I mean, he was awesome in New York, obviously. And then they rest him up for the Breeders' Cup, where he ran a credible 3rd, didn't quite get the pace situation. But again, Medina Spirit did beat him. I mean, you have to take that account, and I'm assuming, as I go ahead and take this off the screen here, I am assuming that. Oh, I didn't mean to do what I just did. That's okay. I'm assuming that if Vikstov were on, he would, take all that into account. I mean, I don't see how you can't. Again, Medina Spirit did beat Essential Quality twice. The question is, how much does that matter to you? And then the next question is, what do you do if you're a voter for the Eclipse Award and we still don't know what the situation is going to be with Medina Spirit's Derby victory or /DQ? And from what I understand, when I've read and I've done a lot of research and reading and whatnot, there's a chance we might not even know until next year's Derby. I mean, how insane and ridiculous is that? I mean, why a split sample will take so long? I mean, I think we got the results of the split sample. We heard from Baffert's lawyers recently trying to, spin their way, saying it was not a shot, it was cream, but it was still in his system, so maybe it wasn't injected. I don't know. But, if he's DQ'd from the Derby, I mean, Essential Quality is the no-brainer 3-year-old champion, right? But as of right now, the Derby champion is Medina Spirit. So what do you do? I don't know. Bittersweet has a comment on the screen. Bittersweet thinks that Essential Quality has the better resume. I think you can certainly, make that argument. I'm just going to say for the record, I agree. I think, again, even if Medina Spirit is declared the winner of the Kentucky Derby, I just think Essential Quality had a better year. It's very close. I can understand if people want to go with Medina Spirit because he beat Essential Quality twice and he beat older horses, although it was a weak field. You win the Travers, the Belmont, the Jim Dandy, all the prep races. You run well in the Derby and the Breeders' Cup. I understand that he lost to Medina Spirit in both of those, but it's not like he finished off the track. He finished 3rd and 4th. It's a hell of a year. It's going to be very fascinating to see who's declared 3-year-old champion. I would personally give it to Essential Quality. Just my opinion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get on to our next fantastic guest, a race that I predicted here on the show, and this is one of the ones I was most proud of, not because of the price. When you're there in person and you're cheering a horse on that you liked as a price, it even feels better. And what I did a few minutes ago by accident is I took off the screen my description of Rattle and Roll. Rattle and Roll won the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. I talked about him in October. He won at Keeneland. He was 8-1 in this race. I was there in person. What a great feeling. I was there with my good friend Jerry Richmond, who, as I mentioned earlier, was the first guest on this show. And I'll tell you what, I was watching from the stands, of course. I had my binocs. On the backstretch, I thought he had a big shot. Once he angled out, and when we watch the video, he's already angled out. Once he angled out, and I could see that, I thought he had a big shot. Again, I used them big win bets, exactas, pick fives, whatever. Gave it out on the show. I hope you guys had Rattle and Roll that day. If you had Rattle and Roll, please mention that in the chat as well. Let's go ahead and bring up Rattle and Roll's victory. Again, this was at Keeneland in the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Rattle and Roll winning for myself and the HHH Racing Podcast at 8-1.
Classic Causeway, the leader by a length. Here's Stellar Tap now taking aim midway on the far turn as that pair works their way toward the quarter pole. Great Escape is racing along in third. Double Thunder's caught in some traffic about 6 lengths off the lead. Here's Rattle and Roll, and Rattle and Roll is moving wide off the turn. Rattle and Roll top of the short stretch to challenge Classic Causeway. Stellar Tap third. Double Thunder is fourth and still 5 lengths from the lead. Rattle and Roll into the final furlong of the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Rattle and Roll the advantage out to 3 lengths now. Double Thunder, Classic Causeway, then American Sanctuary. No catching. Rattle and Roll. Brian Hernandez Jr. to win it by 5 lengths on the...
Man, was I pumped. I gotta tell you, I was very loud. I was really quiet the whole day for the most part. I'm not like a yeller screamer, especially when I watch the races, but sort of the top of the stretch, I was standing up and cheering. I was very, very, very excited when Rattle and Roll won. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what we're going to do. We have about 1 hour left on our show. We're going to take a very short, literally about a 2-minute break here, and then we're going to bring on some fantastic people from Minnesota to talk about Canterbury Park and all the great things that happened this year. I was a big part of Canterbury Park and that cover in the money. So, folks, we're going to be back very soon. Let me go ahead and get the banner up so we don't scare anyone here. We're going to be back literally in about 2 minutes. Do not go anywhere. We still have everyone coming from Minnesota. We have Magic for the Magic and Mike show. We also have Matt Miller coming on, the BCBC champion, to talk about the Chicago team. This is show 100 of the HHH Racing Podcast, folks. We'll be back in approximately 2 minutes. Stay with us, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on the HHH Racing Podcast. Our next segment is going to be fantastic. I got to tell you, I can't say enough good things about the people up in Minnesota and Canterbury Park. And I am hoping to have 3 people on Canterbury Park tonight. I know we have one that I'm going to bring on right now, and hopefully we will have some others coming along. I had the pleasure of going up to Canterbury Park for the first time this year on Mystic Mile Derby Day, and also qualified for the BCBC through Canterbury Park. So Canterbury Park has just been awesome to me. Of course, I also covered Canterbury Park on a daily basis for In the Money Media. I wrote their blog every day, and it was above 30% with a positive ROI, thanks to some fortune handicapping, and also thanks to wonderful people that we're going to talk to, such as Angela Herman and Brian Aragoni and Jeff Madej, who not only are great handicappers, but great people as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on, they're back here waiting right now from the great state of Minnesota. We have Jeff Madej and Angela Herman. Guys, how are we doing tonight?
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hey there, how are you?
What is up?
It's just like the simulcast show. Here we go again. Some guy named Brian, I think, was supposed to come on. I don't know if you guys heard anything. Hopefully he'll be coming on. I didn't hear that he wasn't coming on, so we'll see. But if Brian's not on, that's quite all right. We are in great hands. Jeff, let me start with you. For folks that don't know who you are, you're the Media Relations Director at Canterbury Park. And, of course, Angela, thanks for coming on. You've been on with me before, does a great job on the simulcast feed. I sent you guys a few questions and topics that I want to talk about. Jeff, I'm going to let you talk first. The success of Canterbury Park in 2021, because this is more of a year in review show, has been well documented, outstanding year for Canterbury Park and the business up there.
Yeah, we were fortunate to have a really successful season. I think the introduction of the 10% takeout on the pick 5 and then on the $1 pick 6 was successful and got us on the map, especially with that. I think we had an early, was it the first night we had a carryover in the pick 5? In the season before, it took us, 50 some days before we had a carryover. So that was impressive, I think, and that really got us on the map. But just the way the customers, the handicappers responded with 90 million in handle, a record for Canterbury. We paid out over 15 million in purses to the horsemen. So those are the kind of things I look at from the business side of it that made it a success. But it was just fun. It was a fun meet. It was predictable in ways, with Mac Robertson winning his 14th title as a trainer. But then we have a new jockey like Lindy Wade comes to town and he wins the riding title. Not an easy thing to do in a pretty talented jockey colony that has connections throughout the stable area. So those are, to me, were some of the highlights of the meet as far as the business side.
Angela, by the way, Angela broke through the starting gate early about an hour ago, but we still put her back in the gate, and she's here. She's here with us. Angela, just from your perspective, you're from Minnesota. You know the area very well. Other than what Jeff talks about, why such great success at Canterbury Park? And I believe your track president was in Arizona, Tucson, at the Racing Symposium, talking about some of the wonderful things the last few days that Canterbury does.
Yeah, Andrew has been involved in a lot of those good decisions that we've made and changes that we've made as well in the program. I would piggyback onto what Jeff said as far as predictable things like Mac Robertson, but also Pete Matson really coming about with some really nice Minnesota breds to give that barn competition that typically dominates a lot of our Minnesota bred races. It's fun to watch them get together and kind of shake things up in the Minnesota bred ranks. But things were so contentious in the jocks room. Like he said, that was kind of the highlight for me. I would watch the jockey and trainers races, give the rundown of them each day. And it was amazing how well the new faces did, despite being paired up with a lot of old faces that we've seen in the trainer standings. So it's really a positive sign that these riders have been drawn here, that new faces come with them, and that people are willing to give things a shot up here, even though it's not the easiest trip in the world. And we've got positive feedback from a lot of them on their experience here, even if it was the first time.
Something I'm interested in, you talked about jockeys. Now, I hate to bring up Arlington because I haven't even mentioned Arlington racetrack this entire show so far, because I've really talked about it ad nauseum. But Jeff, I don't know if you have any part of this or if that's more the racing secretaries and whatnot, but obviously there are a lot of horses that were at Arlington that need a place to go now. So, Chicago is not too far from Minnesota. Has there been any conversation with Larry Ravelli or any trainers in Chicago? Now, there is going to be racing at Hawthorne still, but do you think there might be a few more horses coming up from Chicago next summer to Canterbury Park?
I think there will be. There has been some conversations. I don't know if Larry Ravelli's been involved yet in those or not, but I think a lot of the trainers will wait to see our condition book, and that'll be out the first week of January. But the purses will be similar to what they were last year. Maybe I think we're projecting 14.7 million in purses or something like that over the 65-day meet. That'll run the same, mid-May through mid-September. So it will overlap a little bit with that Hawthorne meet, which is going to kind of be funky, where they have thoroughbreds, then they'll take a break and bring in standard breds and then go back to thoroughbred racing. But I do think we'll see more horses, and if the trainers that like to run on both surfaces take a look at what we did this past season, and we were fortunate, we had good weather. I think we had 35 races that were rained off the turf, but we ran a record 180 races on the turf, which is incredible. Part of that had to do with the fact that we started earlier. We started at 5 in the afternoon, which allowed, we don't have lights on our turf course, so we can't run this when the sun goes down. So that cuts into some of your ability to run on the grass. But 180 turf races is unheard of, I think, out of a meet like ours. So if the trainers that have horses that run on both surfaces take a look and see what we do, they'll know that they've got a lot of places to run. And I know we'll be out recruiting hard here. Andrew will, and our racing secretary, Rob Junk, will be out recruiting. And I think we will pick up some Chicago connections because it's a good place to go. And I think the word spreads. If all they have to do is talk to Joel Burnt, and he'll tell them what it's like at Canterbury. So,
no question.
And just the relationship we've been able to have with horsemen. You don't see fights between the horsemen, the HBPA, and Canterbury management like you have at so many other tracks. And that goes back to, we went through a period where we were closed for a couple of years, and we would not have been able to reopen if it hadn't been that collaboration between the horsemen and the management. And that's carried on now for 26 seasons. So that goes a long way as well. I think we'll have a strong backside.
Well, Angela, something that comes to mind with me, Jeff touched on the turf racing. It was pretty hot early in the year, like unusually hot in the early part of the season. That turf course was rock hard and very speed favoring, which I know something that you and Brian Aragoni talked about on your show. And speaking of horses that ran at the meet, I just want to mention a few horses that have won recently, Angela, that I'm sure you're aware of because I know you're a bettor and a great handicapper. Just to mention a few, Giant Payday, who won the Mystic Lake Mile, won in Arizona, I believe. Hotshot
Jeff
Kid.
loves Giant Payday.
Hotshot Kid, boy, did that bother me. Knocked me out of the pick 5. Hotshot Kid, by the way, I think is still currently the second leading, might be the top, but I think is still the second leading money winner in Minnesota with that win. And I don't think he got above Mr. Jägermeister, but Hotshot Kid, very popular Minnesota bred, winning at Keeneland. And I think a 50K claimer, like 16-1, showing no form really all summer up at Canterbury Park, knocked me the hell out of the pick 5 that day. Molly's Angel, who's the Minnesota Oaks winner, winning at Tampa Bay. A horse called Tappage, a nice older horse, finished third at Oaklawn. Angela, these horses coming out of Canterbury Park are always ones to be reckoned with and always probably underrated by bettors throughout the country when they go somewhere else.
I would say that. And I think that horses coming off our turf course especially got a lot of conditioning out of it. We saw a lot of horses go from the turf to the dirt at our meet and then go from the turf wherever they went next. And they performed very well. Giant Payday, like I said, is a favorite of Jeff Madej, so I'll let him cover Giant Payday. But Jeff is actually a great follow if you do want to see any of these horses and where they end up next, even their first or second starts. He's great at tracking them and giving you a heads up, especially the Minnesota breds, because they are, I think, some of the more underrated of any of the stock that we send out, because people look at our state bred races and they don't think much of them. But the pools got deeper with those. The purses have grown. The breeding has really, like the pedigree power has gone way up as far as Minnesota breds go. So they're much more viable with open company than they have been in the past. I think that as the meet goes on a little bit more at Tampa, the horses will settle in there, and some of the connections that you see up here, like their barns heat up in Minnesota, their barns will heat up at Tampa, and you'll be able to catch them at prices too. That's where I would look the most. Oaklawn is a little bit tough, but I mean, Mac Robertson brings his best stock and some of his debuting 3-year-olds down there that have been training up here. We've seen glimpses of them, but Oaklawn is the best, I would say. I don't know about you, Jeff, if you want to preview what's coming up here and what might be in some of our early stakes and allowance races at the meet for next summer.
Right, you'll see Oaklawn horses running at Oaklawn. Joel Burnt is at Delta Downs, so I think you're going to see some horses there, and Gary Shearer at the fairgrounds as well, and Chris Richard. So you will see the Canterbury horses. And Howard, I think I think if you're from Kentucky, if you're from California, Florida, you're used to your homebred's going to other states and winning. And that's not been the case with Minnesota breds. And I think that's what's, to me, is most important about Molly's Angel, a stakes winner, the Minnesota Oaks winner, who just won an allowance a race at Tampa Bay Downs. Owners, and I've said this for years, owners and breeders in Minnesota need to realize that the year is longer than 5 months. There's more racing outside of Shakopee, Minnesota. Go and get the money and breed horses that can run 12 months a year, not just 5 months a year. And Pete Matson is doing that. He's campaigning Fireman Oscar and Molly's Angel and horses like that, and Mac running Hot Shot Kid as well. It's the Minnesota horses can compete elsewhere. They don't just have to run in Shakopee. And I think that sends a message. Pete sent a message there with what he's doing with his very well-bred and very, very durable, very versatile horses. So I was impressed with that, and I think that bodes well for the future.
Well, you guys already mentioned Lindy Wade, and is there a particular Angela jockey or trainer that stood out to you, or that maybe even surprised you a little bit in this last racing meet? Someone that's maybe to keep an eye on going forward, maybe someone younger or someone coming up in the ranks.
Oh, well, Lindy Wade definitely made an impression. I mean, that's a pretty easy one to pick out. But as far as going forward, I was actually interested in a quarter horse trainer of ours. Jeff, I'm sure you can collaborate that Stein Barn actually made a big splash this meet for the first time. I think they had a bigger group of horses. They were performing at bigger prices. And even though it's a runaway usually for the Olmsted Barn, has been for quite a while, and our quarter horse stock gets divided a lot between Iowa and Minnesota, he had a good meet up here, and he was maintaining second and third for most of the trainer standings throughout the meet. And the ROI on him versus the Olmsted Barn was just miles apart. So it was really fun to watch him bring those horses in, and they really performed better this year than they ever had before. I would say keep an eye on him in Minnesota bred races going forward, because he has a handful of those. And wherever else he ends up, I mean, he'll be down at Remington this spring, and he's got that same group of horses that are getting better. So you might be able to catch him at a price there as well.
Any thoughts about that, Jeff?
Well, you mentioned the jockeys, and it will be interesting, I think, to see what, and that goes along with what you said about Arlington. We may get some new riders as well. The business gets pretty cut up, as it does in a lot of tracks of our size and meets like ours, where jockeys that are established and the agents that are established seem to take all the money. But having a new rider like Wade come in and win as many races as he did shows you that it can be done if you get the right connections. So I'm not sure who will come back from this colony that we had this past year. Guys like Rye Eckleberry certainly will, and I'm sure Dean Butler will not. I think he'll still be riding. Veterans like that. But we didn't. I can't think of the young riders that really impressed me greatly. But we had such a strong and deep colony, I think, and talking with a lot of the trainers. And if you're a trainer or a horse owner, Howard, and you think about it, if you're at a track where the colony is, when you talk about just decent riders, is 6 or 7 deep, and you got a 10-horse field, and you get, rider number 8 or 9, you're not very happy. But this year, that jocks room was 14 or 15 deep with competent, good riders. And I think to have a meet where trainers and owners want to compete and want to have a fair shot to win, that's important. That's maybe something that handicappers overlook, or they'll look at what's happening today or who's on what. But just the overall health of a meet, I think, relies on having quality riders, and that's something that we've had. And I think we will in the future. And I also should mention the fact that we had, 225 claims this past meet. That's probably a record. That's another indication of how successful or how healthy that meet was, and how many trainers and owners wanted to compete, and that spoke volumes, the number of horses. So those were all positives, I think, that we're going to build on.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting. And if you guys watched earlier in the show, you mentioned horse ownership. I made the first time ever announcement throughout the world. I am now a horse owner. I actually own a piece of 2 horses with my brother through Adelphi Racing Club out of New York, 2 yearlings. So I know that's very speculative, but I have a part ownership in 2 horses, and it's not I'm not going to give dollar amounts or percentages, but it's not a micro share. This is not like my racehorse 0.0001 thing. This is a decent percent of 2 yearlings. One's a Tappert colt, and the other one actually has a name already. Her name is Salevo. It's a Street Sense filly. So I'm extremely excited. They'll hopefully, knock on wood, be running in New York next year. Ray Handel and Christopher Clement will be the trainers, and I'm actually going to see them guys in a few weeks down in Ocala. So I realize it's a big risk, of course, and we don't have tremendous expectations because it's horse racing, but hopefully they'll both make it to the track and have some fun. Guys, I really appreciate you both coming on the show. Again, I've been applauding Canterbury Park, Jeff and Angela, everything you guys do. Angela, last quick question. Any changes in beer pong next summer?
Oh, goodness. No, you can't. No, you can't fix perfection. No,
It's a
no,
staple.
no. We leave that as it is. And the best advice that I ever got that I shared on this show remains the best advice that I've had for any handicapper throughout the country. If you're going to go in public, listen to Jeff.
There you go. Well, listen to Angela also, and listen to Brian Aragoni, because they both do a great job. Guys, thanks for joining me tonight on the One Earth episode. I look forward to future conversations with both of you on and off the air. Really appreciate you guys coming on. Have a great night. Thanks very much.
Hey, Howard, before
Yeah.
you go, I want to thank you. Thanks for your support of Canterbury, and it was fun, really fun having you at the track. I mean, that's, you came on a night, that Mystic Lake Derby night, when we showed off what we do, and having you was an important part of what we do. It was fun. You made it fun, and that's what came back last year after a pandemic meet that was a struggle. The joy of horse racing and sharing what we do came back, and that you were a big part of it. So I appreciate you, and working with Canterbury, and we'll do it again next season.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thanks, Angela. You guys have a great night. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and good luck
Take
with
care.
your
Bye, guys.
young ones.
Thank you. We'll keep in touch. Take care, guys. Good night.
See ya.
All right. Fantastic. Jeff Madej, Angela Herman. Before I bring on our next guest, and this next guest that we'll be bringing on, I'm very excited to have on once again, making his second appearance on the show. I've been showing videos all night of some scores, predictions we had on the HHH Racing Podcast. This one, you got to give me a minute with here. This was probably the most emotional, best score of the entire year. I'm not going to relive the whole story. Most of you know. I was at the Breeders' Cup. Actually, the gentleman that I'm going to speak with, I met at the Breeders' Cup at the BCBC. I spoke about this horse, and I'm just going to go ahead and show you the first video. This first video, again, these are very short clips. This first video is from the Breeders' Cup preview show talking about the filly and mare Turf. But they've been pointing this horse to this race all year long. I'm going to trust the connections. She's got a great turn of foot. She's not like a dead closer. I'm hoping she'll be somewhat mid-pack. And listen, any of these horses, there's not one horse in this race, not one, that would be even sniffing Mishra only a half length back, in my opinion. Not even close. So that's not just, I'm not just going off of one race, but this is a world, a globetrotter who's very good. The jockey, I believe, is actually ridden in California before at San Anita. I could be wrong about that. Love's Only You is my top pick. My second. So, folks, I was all in on Love's Only You, for better for worse. I played a $2,500 double in the BCBC. Life is Good to Love's Only You. Of course, we know what happened, but we got to relive it, of course. So here is the end, about the last 30 seconds of the Breeders' Cup. Filly and mare Turf, the first Japanese horse ever to win and come home for myself and for my father, God rest his soul. Love's Only You.
Love's Only You is fifth, just in behind the leaders. Love is to her outside. Daria's bottled up behind traffic now, 5 lengths off the lead. Rougier is next. Warlike Goddess has gone by runners, and she continues to do so with a wide blitz. Warlike Goddess is moving quickly. She's moving right now, and she's moving to the lead as they come to the top of the stretch. A 5-wide rally by Warlike Goddess and Julia Leperot. They've taken the lead. My sister Nat follows that run. Love battles on from the inside. It is Warlike Goddess in front. On the inside, Love. On the outside, My Sister Nat. Love's Only You is coming. Here gets Love's Only You to win it for Japan.
Man, I mean, I'm almost about to shed a tear again. That was just Guys, I can't even tell you. I mean, the money was great, of course. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It only moved me up about 330 spots to 13th in the biggest contest in the world as a rookie, and gave me about 24 grand. But seriously, that was just an amazing. I got lucky, fortunate in the stretch. I just had the right. Everything just worked out well. Love's only you. Thank you so much for making my 2021 so memorable. Well, what also made it memorable, maybe not quite that memorable, is my next guest, who does a fantastic job on the Thoroughbred Racing Dudes. Had the pleasure, of course, like I said, I met him in person, and I'm so honored when someone from another podcast comes on my 100th show. That means a lot. I was on his show as well. I look forward, hopefully, to be on his show again, and vice versa. I'd like to bring on, covering the California team, Magic from the Magic and Mike show. Magic, how you doing tonight?
I'm excellent. Congratulations on 100. How you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm almost coming up on 3 hours here, so we're starting to run out of fumes. But I'll tell you what, I had a lot of great guests on. I see you got the terrible towel there in the background. And how are things going in Anything going on in horse racing in California these days?
That usually when they go to Los Al, it's pretty quiet. So yeah, I don't really think there's a whole. I mean, Baffert wins the Starlet, Baffert wins the Futurity. That's usually how early December goes out here.
Listen, I know a lot of people, on this show also. I promote your show as well. I hope you do the same for us. You guys do a great job on Thoroughbred Racing Dudes. And by the way, folks, I had a chance to meet the whole crew. Everyone part of their team out there.
We're still sorry
even after a night of apparently having a little bit of fun before I met most of them. Great bunch of guys. Check out Thoroughbred Racing Dudes and the Magic Mike show. Magic, we're going to talk about a few things here real quick. I sent you an email. Hopefully you received that. Again, thanks for coming on. Look, you're out in California. We've got to talk about it. I'd love to talk about a lot of positives, and we are going to talk about some positive things because there are some wonderful things that did happen in California this year. But look, let's not, let's just talk about it right now. Baffert and Miller. Let's talk about Baffert first. Again, we don't have time to go into great details. The two questions I have for you initially is, when did you hear about the news of Medina Spirit, and what was your first reaction?
So that's it. So first off, for answers, I'm using a different setup. Is the mic okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, perfect. I have to hold it close because it's very sensitive.
We see. No problem.
Let's see. Medina Spirit. So that was Monday morning. So I have a 7-month-old son, and I was taking him to daycare. And being a responsible parent and California traffic being what it is, I don't look at my phone when I'm in the car. And so we get there, I drop him off, and then I get back, and I usually at that point will text my wife that I'm on my way back or something. And I had about 10, 12 texts and a few DMs on Twitter with everybody asking me if it was true, if I knew anything. It's like, what?
That
what
is never, by the way, that is
it.
never a good sign, ever.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's how I found out. And then it very quickly, by that, I think the news had been out for maybe 10, 15 minutes at this point. So, that we were starting to, you knew he had passed by the time the track vet got there. So at least it sounds like he didn't suffer at all. But, yeah, it was tough. And then it's about a half-hour ride home for me because, again, LA traffic. So, for about a half hour, I was a little angry. I'll keep it brief, but I don't have a high opinion of either one of these people we're going to talk about at all. So if you want more thoughts, you can go to the Racing Dudes. But
I will do that.
But
which episode or when in particular do you guys talk about? Was there one particular episode you want to point the viewers to in case they want to check it out?
Not specifically.
The last 5 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much
right.
Since Medina Spirit tested positive. That's you can
That's
go
right.
back.
You don't have to get into details, but obviously there's a lot of unfavorable things that are going on with them. So yeah.
Right. So I was just shaking with anger pretty much the whole way home. By the time I got home, I'd kind of been able to work through the process and everything, but it just angered me because I feel like this was very easily preventable, and it wasn't. So.
Yeah, we of course. Again, I just want to make it clear. I've talked about this on Monday and tonight. We don't know what happened. There's gonna be a full necropsy. I think we all. I'll speak for myself. I hope it was just a horrible,
Right.
heart attack, and there was no drugs or anything going on. But it's hard not to have some doubts right now. And then Peter Miller is on a hiatus. And look, if I'm going to bring on someone from California, we're going to talk about California racing in 2021. I mean, these are the two probably the highest. I don't know if Peter Miller's the highest profile guy. I mean, he's not probably known nationally as well as maybe a Richard Mandela or a Doug O'Neill, but I mean, he's one of the leading trainers out there, and he's got a ton of stock. He's going on a hiatus. I know you've talked about in your show. I mean, what do you make of that whole situation right now?
So I will say that the rumor, when it was all that ever has been proven to be as a rumor, is that he was about to face a very heavy suspension, a la Jerry Hollendorfer, who, if you remember, when the dirt track was a freaking mess at Santa Anita, Jerry Hollendorfer had a huge spat of horses, including Battle of Midway, die from injuries, or have to be destroyed because of injuries. So they suspended him from every Stronach track, and that he's sued to try and come back, and he still hasn't. So it sounds like that's where Peter Miller was headed, because he did have a recent spat of injuries, and it could be bad timing, bad luck. It could be foul play, it could be a mix. We don't know. But with all of that said, yeah, that's what the rumor and what my belief was as to why he left. When you have to put out a statement from a PR team, because he's done this before, he hires a PR team to put out a statement that says, I understand that a lot of people will think that this is because of something else, but it's a specific
red flag. Right there, red flag.
Right, yeah. It's usually something that's not a great sign. So that alone, when you have to come out and tell people, it's like when Maximum Security's first Stallion ad. I don't know if you remember this, but Coolmore put the Maximum Security ad, and it was every race that he'd won and all of his accomplishments and his buyer figures like normal. And then underneath it was only ran on, what is it, water, hay, and oats, and never tested positive. Congratulations, you never tested positive. We have the trainer on record, like in wiretap, saying that this was not supposed to be testable. So, okay. So, yeah, that's Peter Miller leaving to me.
Yeah, look, I told a friend, and I really, it might be, just spitting out comments without thinking. And I talked to a friend. I didn't say it on air, but I'll just say it to you because this is a good time to bring it up. I really hope, and I mean this in all sincerity, that California racing survives this whole situation. Because if you take out, now of course, there's a lot of great trainers. California is full of tremendous people that care a lot about horses. I could go on and on about my great times in California and people I've met. So California is no different than New York, anywhere else. Let's just get that out front. But if you take Baffert's stock away and you take Miller's stock away, Magic, that's a lot of not only stock but talent possibly out of California to someone else. I mean, I know you're not Nostradamus, you can't predict what's going to happen, but that's going to make it. The field size is already small, in California. So I mean, can you foresee, what might happen down the road based on these two situations, these two guys?
Well, so Kentucky, bless their hearts, tried to get Bob Baffert to stop being given Kentucky Derby horses, and what happened? Every owner decided, no, we're still going to give all of our Derby horses to Bob Baffert, and we've even seen with Corniche that the owner said, yeah, after he comes back from a break, he's going back to Baffert. So
as of now, we'll see. I still have my doubts about that, by the way.
I've had this feeling for months that since all of the owners that stayed with him, and they call themselves the Avengers, which is Salk Humans, like 18 different LLCs and a few other guys that are involved with that, when they decided to not move their horses from Baffert, that told me that his legal team, and Baffert's got a crack lawyer team, they've got something worked up, and he will be allowed to run those horses in the Kentucky Derby. So I'm just going to forget about Baffert. It's very pessimistic.
It's funny you say that. I'm sorry. It's funny you say that. I talked with Scott Shapiro from Churchill Downs Incorporated, and I asked him, what do you do with the future Derby pools? He said it's really dicey, for people that like to bet the future Derby pools, because, if some of those horses might be trained by someone else and come back in the pool, and right now they're the all other, that's like 2 to 5 right now. So
right.
I didn't mean to step on your toes, but it's a real tricky situation. We're just going to have to see. Matt, let's talk about some positives, because
let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that, because I don't want to give the impression that I'm like down on California, but I mean, recent events, it's hard not to be right now. A few things I want to talk to you about. Influx of grass racing, tremendous. There's always been great grass racing. I know I've been around the game and older than you, and I remember, when Nakatani and some of these other, Charlie Winningham, these guys were unbelievable, and turf racing was king out in California. I mean, it wasn't New York, it wasn't Kentucky. I mean, you want to talk about grass racing, it was California. You got the influx of more grass racing. You got the downhill course opening up again in 2021, which is a course I'm sure you love and I love. And they, of course, built the other the 6 furlong extension, so they can run those races then in 5.5. Talk a little bit about what you saw in terms of grass racing in California and how excited you are about the future of turf racing specifically in California.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Getting the downhill turf courses. I mean, there's a reason it's the picture that's right here. Like it's just so beautiful at Santa Anita. It's I don't know if you've seen it in person or not, but it's just when you can see it from up high, and the sun hits it like in that photo, which is often because it's California. If you come out, by the way, you come out in January, February, those mountains all have snow on them. It's pretty cool to see too. So I'm very excited about the turf racing coming back, and the downhill turf course especially. It was, in my opinion, unfairly cast aside when there was, again, I talked about that spat of injuries that we had at Santa Anita, and it was very largely concentrated in one area on the dirt track. And it just so happened that when everything was bad and the injuries were piling up and the deaths were piling up, you had a horse coming across the dirt crossing when they go from that downhill turf onto the main turf course. There was just a stumble. It was a bad freak accident, and the horse died, and so they had to shut it down because of that. So we're finally back. The turf shoot also works really well, like you mentioned. As much as I love Del Mar, and as beautiful as Del Mar is, they're severely limited because the track is pretty small. You've seen it, and you've been other tracks, Howard, so you know Del Mar comparatively is actually quite small. So they can only do 5 furlong sprints. So during the summer, you're either going 5 furlongs, a mile on the 16th, whatever. So now you go back to Santa Anita, you can do 6.5, you can do 6, you can do 5.5, you can do 5. We have the best, it sounds like I'm trying to sell you on California turf racing, but we have the most flexibility outside of, say, like a Belmont, and when it comes to what we can do with our turf course. So it's very exciting to have it back. And again, when those horses come down the hill, make the right turn left, it's just, it's so beautiful to see.
It's awesome. I've only been out there once. You talked about snow. I'm sure you remember this because you're out there. I was there, let me get the year, 2019 opening day for the Malibu. Now, it actually wasn't run the day after Christmas. There's a horrible storm that week, if you recall, and they delayed it for a few days. And actually, the day before the races, I always wanted to drive up into the San Gabriels. I went up into the San Gabriel's, actually into a portion that had those bad fires not too long ago, and there was snow. There were people throwing snowballs. There was a little snow, but people throwing snowballs. It was so weird to me coming from Chicago. Why are they going so nuts over some snow? But that was pretty unusual. It was only 6,000 feet. It was pretty low elevation, and so but I saw Omaha Beach just romp that day a bunch on Malibu Day. It was absolutely gorgeous. And that leads me to the last thing I want to talk to you about. Listen, we're talking as if 2021 is over, and it is in most jurisdictions, or at least the big races. One of the biggest days of the year is coming up in a few weeks here. It's the opening, a day for the winter meet, Malibu Day. There's a lot of other great stake races happening, and Johnny Velasquez is going to ride full time there this winter. That's got to be really exciting for everyone in California.
It is. So some inside baseball. He and Joel Rosario share the same jockey agent, Ron Anderson. Who, if you don't know Ron Anderson's stats as a jockey agent, that guy deserves, if there was ever an agent Hall of Fame, or they let agents into the Hall of Fame, that guy's first ballot if there ever was one. It's incredible. So he brought Joel out in the past, and we were able to see, how well Joel just dominated. I get the feeling that Joel, now that he's going to be at Oaklawn, Ron Anderson's I got all these contacts. Velasquez works really well with Baffert. He works really well with Richard Baltus, which is a great angle to play, especially on turf. Now Velasquez can slide in there. It's less race days than in Florida. It's honestly less competitive jockey-wise than it is in Florida. And the weather's nicer because at least we get rain twice during the winter. So I get why Johnny V is doing it. We're excited to have him out here. There's a part of me that thinks that he has found his Derby horse, and that's why he's staying out here. Joel Rosario did this with Concert Tour before Concert Tour ever even debuted. We knew about him because John White, who sets the Santa Anita Morning Lions in Del Mar as well, John White had heard about Concert Tour and how Joel Rosario might like that guy. So, little insight like that. And Concert Tour didn't turn out to be a Derby winner, but you could see, at least on the Derby Trail, why he came to California to be with him.
And Concert Tour back on the work tab, by the way, I saw. So he's working up into a race. I'm not sure where, but no, I saw a good a 5 furlong, 59 or something. Look it up, Magic.
He's still 3, right? Is he still 3?
Yes. I don't know if he's running I don't know, but I know he's on the work tab. And by the way, I cannot wait. I'm in love with Flightline. I mean, this is a complete freakazoid. I don't know who else is going. I know. Actually, you don't have to say this publicly. I think you like Dr. Scheibel in the sprint. I can't recall if you did, and that was a brutal beat. But I like Dr. Scheibel going there. I gotta be honest. Dr. Scheibel has zero chance in that race if Flightline runs his race match, because that is a total, complete freakazoid.
Yeah. He is the one question that I have Flightline's running off my offhand if he's done 7 furlongs or not. My only question would be, without knowing that, if he has done 7 furlongs or not. Remember, Nashville came in last year and was the bee's knees because he set the Keeneland track record in the Perrysville, and that 7th furlong hit him dead between the eyes, and I think he's still trying to finish that race. So
Flightline just seems like a different type, though, to me, but I could be wrong.
He does, and he's built differently than Nashville. Yeah. He's just a bigger horse. So I'm excited for him too, because he's like jet fuel. Just he's good.
Just someone's counting that Cutera is in Brad Cox's barn. So I'm not sure where
that makes sense.
I'm not sure where he's going to be running, but I did read where he was working out, so we'll see where he goes. Listen, Magic, I'd love to talk to you longer, but I know it's pretty early out there, but it's getting late out, of course, here in the East Coast. So I know you had a very busy, I just want to say it publicly, I know you had a very busy day today, and I really appreciate it. I want to get someone on from California. You're a great guy to have on. I'd love to have Mike on as well at some point, and vice versa. Come on with both of you guys so the 3 of us can chop it up on a race card. Thanks for coming on to help us celebrate the 100th show tonight, and good luck going forward. And let's just hope and pray that everything works out with California racing.
Yeah, no kidding. Thanks so much for having me on. Congrats again. I was gonna have champagne, but it's I forgot to chill it, and I'm not drinking
That's
room temperature shit. Not even for you on your 100th episode. I'm not gonna do it. But if you want anything, the Magic Mike Show, everything we do, we're putting it all on YouTube now. So just go to youtube.com/racingdudes. It's very simple. You just subscribe to that, and we're putting up videos all the time. So just like Howard's doing with his great coverage, we're trying to do as much as we can to grow horse racing, and I think YouTube is going to be a great way to do it.
Yeah, check out the Racing Dudes. Listen, I talked to Magic about this. We're trying to grow the game, guys. We're not competing. I mean, some people might look at it that way. I mean, they've been on longer. They've got a bunch more subscribers. Although I'm getting there, but you guys have been around a lot longer, and I'm just trying to pick up the pieces, so to speak. So listen, more content out there on YouTube or anywhere else, the better. Magic, thanks for joining us. Have a great night. Appreciate it. Take care,
Thanks
buddy.
again. Good night. Say hi to Matt for me.
Thank you. All right, guys, that was Magic from the Magic Mike Show. Great job. Gemini, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. We are winding down, folks. I have one more video to show and one more guest left, and then I'm going to wrap it up with a speech at the end. The last horse I'm going to show, and this was the most recent one, was a horse that I gave out, ran Thanksgiving weekend at Del Mar. This is a horse I've been chasing for quite a while and won again at another nice price for us at 5-1. Let me go ahead and bring this up, and you'll find out who we are talking about, because this was the preview of some Del Mar stake races over the Thanksgiving weekend. I did not have Astronaut. This was one of the worst beats I had of the year, to be, for full disclosure. It was an absolutely brutal beat in the pick 5. I love Say the Word in this race. And it's not just because of the last race, folks. He's got races in his PPs that are clearly good enough to win. He's been given a little bit of a break. I don't mind DeSormo on this horse. I love Say the Word. If I get 4-1, I am going to the window and betting this horse heavy. Can you tell that I like Say the Word in this race? Let's go ahead and watch. This was the Hollywood Turf Cup. It was grade 2. Say the Word going off to me at a ridiculous 5-1. A great ride by Kent DeSormo, who had a ridiculous, fantastic string of rides over that Thanksgiving weekend. Here's Say the Word winning for me and hopefully for you in the Hollywood Turf Cup at Del Mar over Thanksgiving weekend.
Rock Emperor still has about 4 lengths to make up. He's going to The split horses. Well, Friars Road comes up on the outside, and they're into the stretch, and it's Acclimate off the turn in front. Rock Emperor with a clear shot on the outside. Award winner is in between those two. Then it's Cupid's Claws trying to come on as Friars Road from the back of the pack, and Say the Word is charging down the center of the course too. A driving finish in the Hollywood Turf Cup, and from last, Say the Word.
Wow, what a close. Fantastic ride by DeStormo. Just so patient, saved ground, came over the top, Say the Word, winning at 5-1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have one more guest left to bring on, and this is a recording. So I hope you're going to stay with me here as I go ahead and get this set up. There is a very exciting. Sorry, 1 second here. There's a very exciting winner of the BCBC. The BCBC is the biggest contest in the world, live money contest, and a gentleman who lives only about 15 minutes from me, Matt Miller, who was on the show before after he won the BCBC. Came on again here. This is previously recorded. He's visiting one of his daughters, I believe, in college at University of Wisconsin tonight, so he couldn't be with us live. But here's a recording about 15 minutes. And what's exciting about this quick episode is that Matt flips it around. He's going to do a 10 minutes to post segment on me. So Matt is going to ask me 10 questions, rapid fire, 10 minutes to post. Here's my conversation with the BC champion, Matt Miller. And now we're going to bring in my friend, the champ. I think he just walks around town with a gold chain that says the champ, the BCBC champion, Matt Miller. Matt, how you doing tonight?
It's great to be back. I own no gold chains, nothing like that. It's all kind of back to normal already, believe it or not.
Well, Matt is here tonight. Not only is the BCBC champion, but to represent the Chicago team, Chicagoan. So thanks a lot for joining us tonight, Matt. And instead of asking you a lot of questions, you're going to ask me the questions. As you know, I have a very famous 10 minutes to post segment on my show in which I ask my guests 10 rapid fire questions. You're going to turn it around on me and you're going to ask me 10 questions. And ladies and gentlemen, I have absolutely no idea, in full disclosure, what these questions are. Correct, Matt? You can verify that.
That's correct.
All right, let's hit it. Rapid fire. 10 minutes to post. Here we go with Matt Miller.
All right, so if I'm doing this right, 10 minutes to post, 10 minutes. Okay, here we go.
Very good.
I mean, and it is hilarious to me. I'm not sure I ever expected to even be on a podcast, let alone be the one asking questions on it. All right. So
I'll tell you what, hold on a second. You know, we have to do this properly. Hold on a second. Everyone's like, hold on, here we go. There we go. Now you can say it.
10 minutes to post.
All right, there you go.
All
right, here we go.
So the non-racing questions, and I am including podcasting in the non-racing component. So first, if you weren't such a fan of horse racing, what do you think would be your main source of recreation?
In terms of watching on TV?
Just sports.
Yeah, I'm definitely watching sports. I watch a lot of sports anyway. I'm a huge sports fan. I love all the main sports, football, basketball. I'd say those two are my favorites. I enjoy baseball as well. Hockey, not quite as much, although I respect hockey players and I enjoy watching. But I'm mainly more, I'd say, basketball would be my first love because I coached basketball for 20 years as well. So I'd say I'd be watching a lot more basketball on TV than horse racing.
Would you have a podcast?
That's a great question. I don't know. I'm very passionate about horse racing. I love basketball. But I don't know if I'd have a podcast. I'd probably say no, actually.
Okay. All right. Question number 2. As you know, I'm a good friend of our mutual friend, PTF. I've heard plenty of horror stories around hosting podcasts. So I'm going to give you a few choices, but I want to know what you think is the hardest part. Is it finding guests, interesting topics? Is it the handicapping load? Is it clicking all the switches as your own producer? What's the hard part?
I would say the last one. I mean, now you have to understand, PTF in the money, they have great producers behind the scenes. So, PTF and the other hosts are not doing a lot of the clicking. If you could see my situation behind me here, I actually have 2 screens. A lot of people that do podcasts have 3 or 4 monitors. I have 2 monitors, but I use a software called StreamYard, which is fantastic. But I'm doing a lot of clicking behind the scenes. That makes me the most nervous, frankly, is making sure I click everything correctly and make no mistakes. Finding guests it's easy to find the guests. The question is getting them on the air, of course. But as you gain a little more in popularity and you become a little more well known, that becomes easier. The handicapping I love doing. I don't even consider that a load. That's just a lot of fun. So I'd say pressing the right buttons in the actual production as the show goes on live.
Okay. All right. Number 3, and you can answer this relative to today and relative to 100 episodes ago. Do your personal friends and family watch or listen to the show?
Yes, not nearly as much as the typical viewer. Strangely enough, a lot of my family members really aren't that interested in horse racing. So I do have some friends that watch the show. I've gained a lot of new friends, though, through the podcast. So I have a lot of horse racing friends, of course, that watch the show. But I do have some day-to-day friends that watch, but really not as much as you might think. I think PTF would probably say the same thing.
Okay. All right. Top 3 sporting events you've ever attended in person. I don't care if it's racing or not, but just whatever you consider sporting events.
Number 1 was the Bulls Game 7, Chicago Bulls beating the Portland Trail Blazers at home. Actually, I think it was Game 6. Excuse me. I think it was Game 6, actually.
I was
1992, I'd like to say. Somewhere around there as a guess. When they won the NBA championship, they came back down 18 in the 4th quarter. I was in a $30 standing room only seat at the old Chicago Stadium. That would be number 1. Number 2, I'd probably have to say Soldier Field when the Chicago Bears beat the New Orleans Saints to go to the Super Bowl with Sexy Rexy, a quarterback, Rex Grossman. I can't recall the year, so you'll have to, maybe someone out there can help me with that one. And then I'd say number 3 was the Breeders' Cup, this last Breeders' Cup last month. It was just, I had pleasure to hang out with you, meet a lot of famous people. It was by far my horse racing highlight of my life. And it was right up there with the other 2 that I previously mentioned.
Okay, cool. Good answers. Okay, last non-horse racing question. So when you started this podcast, realistically, did you expect it to get to 100? And does it look like what you expected it to look like at that point when you started?
So when I started in January, I have to be honest, I had absolutely no idea, first of all, what I was doing, number 1, even though I do have journalism background and I feel like I'm pretty well versed in horse racing knowledge. But in terms of the whole tech aspect, had no idea what I was doing. As people saw earlier on the show, when I showed my first episode, 20 seconds of my first episode, it looked and felt a lot different than what folks are seeing now. No, I did not think I'd get to 100. I really didn't know if I was going to do it for a few weeks, a month, whatever. And I'm very happy with the way it looks now. Yeah, I think it looks well. I'd like to make some changes going forward, some minor changes.
That's going to be my last question.
I'm happy with the way it looks.
All right, awesome. Okay, let's get to the racing questions.
All right.
What handicapping or betting advice do you routinely give out that you consistently think people don't listen to enough?
Wow. That's a great question.
If it helps, I'll give you my answer to that.
No, I'll go ahead. I think I really try to look out of the box. I try to zig when other people zag. Now, certainly, I've given plenty of favorites out here on the show. I mean, if you want to hit pick 4s or 5s, you have to have winners, right? So I'm not just going to blindly just toss favorites all the time. But I think I constantly tell people on the show to try to open up your mind and don't just look at the moto obvious horses. Don't always just look at the favorites. And I've had some success on this show and personally betting with that. But it's hard to get people off the favorite when the favorites look so obvious sometimes.
Okay, that's fair.
What's yours?
Say again?
What's yours? You said you were going to give yours.
So mine, well, and I kind of mentioned it, I think last time, I try very hard to handicap without looking at the morning line. And I'm convinced people would do a better job if they did the same thing. I'm not saying to reject it. I'm just saying do your work first and then look. And I've told that to a million people and no one seems to care at all. And everyone just does it their own way. Whatever.
I'll make sure the great morning line maker at Naira, David Aragon, who I just had on my show, I'll make sure to mention that to him, that you said don't look at the morning line. No, you're not saying don't look at the morning lines. You're saying it'd be best to handicap without the morning lines. Totally understood.
That's right. And it's funny. I'll say something about him and say he actually makes my exercise the most pointless maybe of all the morning line makers. I end up very similar to him. So there ends up not being that much variance as it turns out.
Terrific.
Okay, this is your segment. Let's keep going. What is the best handicapping or betting advice that you have received, that you understand, and that you consistently fail to adopt in practice?
Wow. You know, my weak spot is turf racing and horses that go to the lead. I've lost more races with horses wiring the field on turf than anyone. That's okay. That's it, folks. That's his bookie calling. Make sure he's got his bets in for this weekend coming up. No, I'm just kidding. Probably not using speed enough on the turf, especially. Maybe it's just because of New York and what's been happening there a lot. That's my bugaboo. I hear people say this horse is lone speed, you know, especially in a turf race. I just don't think the horse classes up and they end up wiring the field and beating me. That's something I got to continue to work on in certain situations.
Okay, that's good. All right, third question. I've told you before, and I'm serious about going to Saratoga this summer. I believe you haven't been there yet. Is that your bucket list track? And what do you want to do when you're there?
That's definitely my domestic bucket list track for sure. What I want to do, get some Hattie's chicken. Is that correct? I believe that's there. I hear that's outstanding. No, listen, I'd like to meet Andy Sterling in person, which would be great. And I'd like to say hello to him. Just really walk around the grounds. I hear the picnic area is fantastic. And I don't really have anything specific there other than walk around the grounds, try to meet Andy Sterling if possible, and really just, enjoy the day. And obviously when you go to Saratoga, of course, the city itself, from what I understand, is Saratoga Springs is just fantastic. And just walking down the streets there and hanging out at some great restaurants.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've heard as much fun as the racing is, I've heard the nights are just as good. So, okay. All right, question 4 is a little bit off format. These are 6 lightning round. Just give me a pick. I'm going to give you a couple choices and pick what you like. Do you like a live tournament or a pick and pray?
Live.
Do you like a mythical $2 win in place or live money tournament?
Live money.
Would you rather hit a 10 to 1? I got to get this question right. You're going to hit a 10 to 1 shot on a big bet. Would you rather win that in the Kentucky Derby or the Breeders' Cup Classic?
Now, I know why you're answering that question, because I'm going to say Breeders' Cup Classic, because I think you're assuming that I'm in the BCBC and I need it to win, let's say, 400,000. I'll go with the Breeders' Cup Classic. Okay,
so let's say no tournament. Like which race would feel better to nail?
The Derby.
The Derby. Yeah.
The Derby.
So too. Would you rather win the NHC or the BCBC, and why?
Not even close. The BCBC, with all due respect to the NHC, which is a great tournament. I'm more of a live money guy like you are, and I think the live money contests really, there's strategy in both, but somehow, the live money contest, because it's live money, you're actually winning real money and not mythical money as you go along throughout the tournament. So I think that adds to the excitement. Plus, you're also live, or you could be live at the Breeders' Cup. So I'd say the BCBC.
And the higher prize money for the NHC doesn't make you flip?
What is it, $1 million? What is the price?
I don't know exactly, but I think it's in the 700,000 or 800,000 range. It's definitely more money.
That might. Well, for you, it'd be $1 million if it happens in January, correct?
Actually, I think they did away with the bonus. So I think
no bonus. Okay. I'll stick with the BC. How's that?
Okay. All right. Last one. It's a little bit complicated. Would you rather hit a $10,000 pick 4 on a saver ticket that nobody knows about, or would you rather hit a $5,000 pick 5 that you gave out on your show?
The second one for sure.
For sure.
Listen,
right?
I love doing the show, and part of the reason why I love finding winners is not selfishly. It's really for the viewers. I love giving out winners for the viewers. So definitely the second one.
Okay. All right. So I have a 10th question, and then I have a bonus question. The 10th question: what is your view on hedging at the end of a multi-race sequence? So you're in a pick 6, you get to the last leg, you've got the whatever 2, 3, or 4 horses you want, and you're alive to a decent amount of money. What's your view on hedging and playing the other horses that you don't like, or just sticking with what you got?
So this could be a long-winded answer, but I'll be very brief. I am someone that does tend to hedge. It does depend on how much I'm alive to. I mean, if I'm alive to a pretty good score, I probably will hedge. I try to hedge though with doubles from the penultimate race to the final race. I don't like to put large win bets on horses I don't like. I'd rather do doubles. I think there's more value in the doubles from the second to last race to the last race. So if I hedge, it's usually with that type of bet and not usually win bets on horses I don't like.
Okay, good. All right, so the 11th question, and we're just going to consider this a victory lap for getting to 100 episodes. It's really a question about where you see this being 100 episodes from now. So the question is, what would you like to be doing differently? Do you want a producer? How do you see the show evolving? Is there something you'd like to do that you're not doing now?
Yeah, so as we move forward, first of all, I'd like to get up to 1,000 subscribers because when you get to 1,000 subscribers, you get to monetize, which is a short way of saying you get to start making some money on YouTube. Although it's very small amount unless you have millions of views, frankly. But so I'd like to get to 1,000 subscribers for sure. I would definitely like to have a producer at some point. I am working on sponsorship right now. I'm going to keep that sort of behind this. Actually, earlier on the show, we found out about a possible sponsor going forward. If you folks remember that with Adelphi, but I'm looking for sponsorship going forward so that we can do a little more advertising on the show. And God willing, there'll be another 100 shows. I like to keep doing this as long as I have interest and as long as other people have interest out there. So I would say the advertising, trying to get monetized, and a producer, all those things I'd like to do. Maybe similar types of graphics and changing a few things up technically as well.
Okay, cool. Keep it up.
All right. Well, thanks. So here's how we're going to end this segment with Matt. Very briefly, Matt. You know this because I happened to text you something about it, but I played in the NYRA contest on Saturday, the Cigar Mile, and I was doing pretty well. And I want to bring this up for people that are interested in live money contests. So I'm going to show everyone right now a screen. And this screen, as everyone can see, I'm going to go ahead and go full screen here. Let me explain to everyone what we're seeing here. This was the standings. You see I'm in 7th place there, which says 39.41. And we all start with $2,500 live money. You see Samuel Sherman had a huge lead. This is going into the last race. So this is with only one race left, which was the Cigar Mile. Very quickly, Matt, without getting into handicapping whatsoever, if you were me here in this situation, I was in 7th with 39.41, although I only had about 3,000 that I actually could bet because I had live money in doubles. I was alive for 2,500 to American Revolution, and I was alive to 6,000 approximately to Code of Honor and Ginobili. Knowing that I was alive to that type of money, what would you recommend it? Again, not from a handicapping standpoint, from a betting standpoint, if you were me, if my goal was try to win the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think with the prize structure being NHC spots going to the top 2, I think that kind of had to be the goal. I remember telling you that 17,101 needs to be the new target. We weren't sure if that top spot was going to play something or not. Very often you will see someone make a small play to move the bar a little bit. but I think you had to readjust your sights to 17,200, let's say. And with the fact that you had two doubles coming back that paid in the 6,000s each, and with the amount of ammunition you had, look, you know my strategy already. I'm a pretty simple, I prefer playing win bets if you can do it. If you really couldn't split your two horses, I might have played exactas with those two on top, but I would have played pretty thin. And what I would have tried to get you to do is pick one of those two horses that you were alive to for 6,000 and press that up very hard. You probably could have done it with a simple win bet to get to the front, given the amount you had coming back already. But I would have recommended taking the second as a saver. 6,000 on a daily double would have been a nice takeaway for your second pick winning. But I would have definitely done what you could to expose yourself to winning this tournament by using that remaining ammunition on one of those two horses.
And what ended up happening is, I liked American Revolution, but the reason why I was only alive with 2,200 with the doubles is I was really trying to beat him. I just didn't think he should have been a big favorite, and I wasn't sure about his last buyer, which was a 108 in the slop. Again, we could talk forever about the details of handicapping, but as you guys know, Matt's a big game hunter. He's not afraid to put, I'm going to go ahead and take this off. He's not afraid to put his money on the line, as you saw in the BCBC when he went all in 33,000 on Nick's Go. Matt Miller, it's been a real pleasure to have you tonight as our final guest on the show. Any closing thoughts as I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the night once we take you off the screen here?
I'm honored you had me back. And I think if you remember from my last appearance, I think I had said that the only thing I really watch is In the Money. I've definitely started watching the show. I like your format, and it's been fun.
Mamler, really appreciate all the positive comments. Look forward to having you on in the future. Thanks a lot. Have a great night.
All right. You too.
All right. Whoops. Sorry. Let me go ahead and I got to fool the camera again. I think my next investment, folks, is a camera. Sorry. Now I look somewhat respectable. Sorry for the blurriness there. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Matt Miller. He was fantastic. Good friend of mine. Gave a little advice there on contest play at the end. Folks, I was going to wrap up the show right now, but I got a little surprise for you. We are live here, and it's been a great night. I cannot believe that this guest has stuck around. I am so honored. What a saint. I want to bring back, just for a minute, look who's here. Kim Weir. Kim, what are you doing still up?
Oh, well, it's a big party tonight, and I just wanted to hear the final comments, and I've just been so delighted to be a part of this, Howard. Just to say one more congratulations, and also just to thank each and every one of your audience members who have really stepped up and given gifts to the horses. It's been a good night for the horses. It's been a good night for the podcast, and it's just exciting to be a part of it. So I just wanted to pop in and say it's been fun to listen, and I want to say thank you to you, Howard, and to each of your wonderful audience members who've answered the call of the horses. And we have had a nice night of fundraising while you've been talking to all your favorite people. So congratulations.
Terrific. Well, hopefully, and as I just sent you a private message there, we'll have a lot more people watching after tonight, and they're going to watch the show as a replay. And several times I put up the screen where they can donate, and many oats and peppermints and whatever else will be coming the way to the herd, to the TRF herd. Kim, thanks for staying up. We really appreciate it. And we will have you on for a longer segment so we can talk more about yourself and the TRF. Thanks a lot, Kim. Really appreciate you sticking around.
It's a pleasure. Good night, Howard.
All right, have a great night. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Weir from the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show with a very short speech that's very heartfelt, and I'm going to read it. Usually I go off the cuff, but I would like to read this, so bear with me, and then we'll go ahead and end this show. Let me go ahead and take the banner off, too, so we're not distracted. On January 22nd of this year, I started a journey that has become one of my better personal accomplishments, the development of the HHH Racing Podcast. I've always had the desire to express my opinions and knowledge of horse racing in a more formal manner. And although I did not know how this would manifest itself, the enjoyment I experienced on my 3 appearances on the Matt Bernier show through In the Money Media definitely told me, hey, I think I can do something like Matt has been doing for several years. Although the podcast started off very raw, especially on the tech side of things, as you've seen earlier tonight, I gained more experience and momentum as the shows progressed. I cannot thank enough all the people that helped me get to this moment tonight, from improved software and graphics to ideas, suggestions, contact information, etc. for future guests. I want to give special thanks to the In the Money media team, specifically Matt Bernier and Peter Thomas Fornatal, who gave me exposure on In the Money Network and encouraged me to keep producing great content. And of course, all the great guests who helped me make the show such a success. But the real thanks goes to you, viewers. You cannot have a successful podcast without dedicated viewers who believe and respect what you're doing. And of course, give out plenty of winners as well. Please continue to spread the word about this podcast, and let's continue to grow together with bigger and better things to come in 2022. I look forward to our journey through the next 100 shows and beyond. Again, I thank everyone so much for joining the show tonight. It has been a real honor. We've gone through 100 shows. The 101st show will take place a week from tonight, December 16th, at our regularly scheduled time, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. We will discuss a great card at Gulfstream a week from this Saturday. They have many stake races. Folks, until next time, this has been Howard Kravitz with the HHH Racing Podcast 100th celebration episode. Have a great night. Thanks for joining me. Take care.